want to thank everybody for coming to the Newington Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for August 22nd. If everybody could rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marina, if you could do the roll call, please.
Chairman Aida. Commissioner Canello.
Here.
Commissioner Claffey.
Here.
Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Kane.
Here.
Commissioner Sobieski.
Here.
Commissioner Woods.
Here.
Commissioner Bacalica. Commissioner Braverman.
Here.
Commissioner Giangrave.
Okay, thank you. We'll have Commissioner Braverman sit for Commissioner Aida. And just a reminder for all the commissioners, please use your microphones, bring them up close so that everybody can pick up everything and the tape can pick up the record. Approval of the agenda. If it's all right with the commissioners, can we move the status of the Newington Ridge Preserve after remarks by commissioners? Move it up on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're going to make that correction on the agenda. We're going to move the Newington Ridge Preserve up after remarks for commissioners. So at this present time, we'll go to public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Speakers limited to 2 minutes. Anybody wishing to speak? Anybody wishing to speak? Hi, Rose.
Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive, and thank you for the overflow room there. I appreciate it, except the it's a couple minutes or a couple seconds behind. I only wanted to come in and say thank you to Mike D'Amato. I understand that you'll be leaving us, and you'll be missed. I know that I've called you quite a few times, and you've gotten right back to me, and I appreciate everything that you've done. And I hate to see another good employee go, but I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Thank you again.
Anybody else wishing to speak during public participation? Anybody else? Okay. Remarks by commissioners. Anybody have anything? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to personally thank Mr. D'Amato for all he's done. I was very sad to hear that you were leaving. I wish you best in your future endeavors. The town is certainly missing, is going to be noticed that you're going to be missing. You've been very quick to respond to complaints. You've done your utmost to make sure that everything is followed. And again, you're going to leave a void. It's going to be tough to fill. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Fox?
I'd like to echo that, Mike. It's a pleasure to work with you. During the week, right after the minutes came out, I got a communication from Sandy Austin Goldstein, who spoke for quite a while, and she was saying that the minutes didn't really reflect what she said, that transcribed improperly. So she gave me a copy of it. I don't know if you want to put this in the minutes for next, for the next meeting.
Would you want to bring that up when we talk about the minutes, please?
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? I want to congratulate Mike too on your new position. We're going to miss you here, but congratulations on your new endeavor.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move the status of the Newington Ridge Preserve up on the agenda, and I would invite the town attorney Ancona, and the association and the contractor up to the table so that we could have a status report on the Newington Ridge Preserve.
Two microphones. Hi, my name is Janet Chernikoff. I'm the Vice President of 4 Deming Farm Drive. I'm the Vice President of the association.
Michael Massimino, developer of Newington Ridge Preserve, 15 Hosley Avenue in Brantford.
Ben Ancona, town attorney.
Thank you. From what I understand, the contractors met with the association earlier today, and maybe you could explain to the commission what you've worked out.
Good evening. Good evening. So, yes, I met with the homeowners association, and we've came to an agreement of some things that will be getting done, obligations for myself for some homeowner association issues, which includes some irrigation. But as it relates to the main topic of the binder for the road, I've committed to bringing a contractor on or before September 28th to have the binder ripped up, reclaimed to town of Newington spec, and put a binder down, which will be completed by the 28th of September. I'm just in the midst of getting 2 bids. I'm going to meet next week. They're going to touch base with the town to make sure that we're all on board. Once we pull the binder, I'm assuming we'll, at that point, look at the base and make sure that everything's on, to town satisfaction to install the binder. Over the next 2 weeks, Michael Bennett from Bennett and Smiles will be coming in to meet with the town as it relates to the site plan modification that someone's kind of been hanging out there. Janet and Michael were before the Wetlands Board last night, and the plan that we're going to be proposing is ultimately what, Wetlands, I believe, is okay with us building, which is ultimately eliminating the plunge pool that was approved last month. We're going to be doing some grading. We're going to be installing a bunch of plants. Lot 1 is going to be able to walk from the side of her yard down to the back of her yard. We're going to pull that grade back, relocate our condensing unit. So the goal over the next couple of weeks, Michael will come in. I have to still address the report from George Logan, so I could satisfy wetlands, which would ultimately get our permits back. But regardless of that status, I am committing to putting the binder course on or before September 28th, and then we're in hopes that we'll be able to be before you on the next meeting to address the site plan modification, which basically includes the elimination of the gazebo, sidewalks, adding the light, and I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Any commissioners have any questions? And then once the binder is done, I would assume that you're going to grind the existing binding into the road.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That'll increase the road base.
I do intend, so although, we're going to be coming in for site plan modification, with the grading, there's a topsoil pile that's behind lot 1 and 2. I plan on mobilizing in advance to get that started with the timeline that I'm committing to putting the binder by September 28th. I'm going to basically start grading, remove the topsoil, start moving the tracking pad, stabilize it, so we could get ahead of the game a little.
Okay. And when you do the binder, you're going to also put some protection around the manholes at the same time, so it's winterized.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner.
Do you have a timetable as to when you're going to put the final top course on? Because that binder is going to be back in the same condition as it was before.
Well, it
stays
won't
for
be
a while.
that bad.
No, I realize that, but I'm
because
just.
this is going to be done correctly. The other one wasn't done correctly, and you can't put the top course down until you at least do the foundations. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we got to get the heavy foundations in so that the cement trucks come in and those other trucks come in, and then once that's all done, and I would assume you're waiting for the wetlands and stuff so you can take the permits out. Is that correct?
Correct, but just, obviously, the summer came and went, but
Yep.
just to commit to the homeowners, I'm going to get the binder on and.
Okay. Well, that's a big thing to get the binder on without the permits on the thing. You are welcome to come in for a bond reduction right after September 28th if you get that the road in and some of the other work in. If you want to come in for a bond reduction, you can.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Stay there. Hi, there's just one thing Michael and I agreed upon, and that would be come September 28th, if there is no completed binder course, that the town automatically release the money to us in conjunction with the town to work to put in a binder course on our own.
Okay. I'll ask the town attorney if he could sit down here so we could ask him some questions. I'd rather not do it as an automatic. I'd rather because frankly, the September 28th is a tight schedule, but if the contractor thinks he can do it, then who am I to say? But I'll let the town
I think
attorney
that's perfectly appropriate.
to do it as an automatic.
As an automatic, absolutely. We've gone far enough. I think you'll agree that that's a reasonable accommodation, and you've got the 28th.
So we would, when do we meet?
12, I believe it's the 12th.
26th.
26th. Yeah, 12, the 26th.
So I guess we can meet the 26th just before the 28th and see what progress there is, and we can talk about it. Isn't there something that we have to do? It wouldn't fall,
The town planner's already done it.
he's already done everything? Okay, and you don't have any problems with that?
None.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to say is in the minutes, the town planner, on his report, stated that the grading was completed behind lots 1 and 2, and just as correction, we know it's not.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
And the other thing is, we met before wetlands last night. There were legal costs incurred by the association that the builder agreed to pay for within a certain dollar limit that we agreed with him. And should that not be done, should we not receive payment on that, then I'm also asking the TPZ give us permission to hold the bond money until such time as we do get paid.
Could you give us
I
a,
think that's a little bit of a stretch, but I think equity would dictate in this particular circumstance that we could probably navigate through that.
so wait and see?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. That's the short answer.
Okay. I will take that up when the time comes and address it. I'll ask the contractor, are you sure you don't need a little bit of a grace period for rain days or anything like that? Just put it on the record right now. You know, do you need a few extra days for a grace period, or are you comfortable with the September 28th?
I mean, to be quite frank, we were battling at September 20th, and we're at the 28th, so
Okay.
I'll make it happen.
Okay, very good. I thank you very much for doing that for the homeowners association.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. I just need to talk to Mr. Massimino in the hallway for a moment.
Okay, thank you very much. If commissioners don't have any other questions, we're gonna,
Excuse me, I have one more thing to say.
Certainly.
To Mike D'Amato, that we also appreciate all the help that he's given us, and we will sincerely miss him, and we wish him well. Thank you.
thank you very much. Thank you, Mike, and thank
you.
you,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
Town
gentlemen.
Attorney. Okay, if I could have the procedure for the public hearing?
We gotta do minutes. Remarks by commissioners.
The minutes, or,
No, that's after. I have a different.
yeah, you got a different thing. Okay, if I could have the procedures for the public hearing read into the minutes, please?
The order of proceedings at a public hearing shall be as follows. A, convening by a chairman. B, reading of the notice by the commission secretary or a commissioner designated by the chairman to act in his stead. C, identification and location of the property involved by the town planner. D, statement of the issue to be considered by the chairman or the town planner. E, presentation by the applicant limited to 20 minutes unless a specific extension is granted by the chair. F, persons wishing to speak in favor of the application limited to 2 minutes per person. G, persons wishing to speak in opposition to the application limited to 3 minutes per person. H, rebuttal by the applicant limited to 5 minutes total. I, rebuttal by the opposition limited to 5 minutes total. During a public hearing, it shall be within the discretion of the chairman whether the time limitation shall be varied slightly, provided the commission consents to any such variance. In no case shall an extension be for more than 20% of the allotment indicated above, or 1 minute, whichever is greater.
All right, thank you very much. If you could read petition 24-18 and petition 25-18 into the record, please.
Petition 24-18, zoning text amendment, new section 3.26, workforce assistant housing district in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, section 8-3G. Dakota Partners, Inc., applicant. Timothy S. Hollister, 1 Constitution Plaza, Hartford, Connecticut. Contact continued from August 8, 2018. Petition 25-18, zoning map amendment at 550 Cedar Street in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, section 8-30G. Dakota Partners, Inc., applicant. Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, LLC, owner Timothy Hollister, 1 Constitution Plaza, Hartford, Connecticut. Contact continued from August 8th, 2018.
Thank you very much. I'll have the applicant come up, and we're going to keep these two together. But I do realize you have a site plan, which we'll talk later in the meeting about. So if we could keep our site plan comments to, unless you're answering a previous question, we'll keep any site plan issues later in our agenda, if that's all right.
Well, Attorney Tim Hollister, for the record, it's really all one presentation, but I will agree that if we mention site plan, it's only to illustrate our points about the zone change and the text amendment.
Correct.
So,
And then later in the meeting, I'm sure the commissioners are going to have questions concerning issues on the site plan, and that's when I want to address those issues.
Right.
So before we go into that, I just want to read a little bit of our staff report from our last meeting, describing this a little bit. Basically, in 1990, the Connecticut legislature adopted the Affordable Housing Appeals Act, which is codified in 830G of the Connecticut General Statute. This law has been amended many times since then, but the basic principle remains the same. If less than 10% of the town's housing stock is affordable, an affordable housing application must be approved by the Town Plan and Zoning Commissions. Towns that have 10% of their housing stock affordable are exempt from the appeals process laid out in 830G. Newington is at 8.13, which is roughly about 240 units shy of the threshold to be exempt. And now I will let the attorney hopefully go into questions from our last meeting, or however you would like to handle it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Attorney Tim Hollister, representing the applicant. I'm here with the same development team that presented when we were here on August 8th. Let me just take a moment to kind of review what we've done so far and where we are headed, because I think it'll help the discussion as we go along. So we started the hearing on August 8th. The applicant made our initial presentation covering all aspects, the zone change, the text amendment, and aspects of the site plan. And we discussed preliminarily the fact that, as is well known, that this particular site has some oil contamination resulting from the use of the property from the late 1960s until the early 2000s as a car dealership and an auto service facility. There has been a long series of steps to clean up the site, but the site cleanup is not finished. And what we reported on last time was that the owner, Stop and Shop, working with the applicant here, Dakota Partners, had commissioned a final, extensive, intensive site inventory aimed at presenting a cleanup plan that would, if carried out, would make the site clean for the proposed residential use. So the schedule was that the inventory, which was conducted by a company called Geo Insight in Middletown, was completed on August 10th. We got a draft report from Geo Insight on August 14th. We shared that orally with Mr. Minor and Mr. Hinckley, just to kind of give them the preliminary overview on Thursday of last week, and we committed to filing the final plan, the cleanup plan, next week. Now, I'll jump ahead. Last night, we presented this information to the Wetlands Commission, and they have set their public hearing on the on the wetlands application, but specifically we will deal with the soils issue there for Tuesday, September 18th. So what that means is we will file our soils remediation plan next week. We're aiming for Tuesday, the 28th, I believe. And then we will intend to be here at your hearing on September 12th, and that will be the night when we'll be able to fully go through the environmental situation. I will give you just the briefest preview and say the good news is that the inventory shows that the remaining cleanup, the soil that needs to be excavated and hauled off the site, is small areas, localized, very manageable. It's not leaching off-site, it's not moving off-site, and we feel that we can deal with it to the town's satisfaction. So the other thing that happened last week is we got several fairly detailed memos from Mr. Minor before he left for vacation about asking for a series of exterior design and interior amenity changes. And we've spent the last several days working through that list, and what you'll hear tonight is what we think we can, and mostly can, in a few cases can't do with that. So we will follow that schedule. We'll be back here. After tonight, we'll have to continue to at least September 12th. But what we can do tonight, and we'll try to do it in maybe 10 or 15 minutes, is I'm going to have Mr. Walter, Will Walter, our consulting engineer, review some revisions that we've made to the site plan. I'm going to have Mr. Ullman talk about respond to questions about the traffic situation that came up last time, and then Mr. Thompson will have some comments on revisions to the architecture and the amenities.
Can we keep the site plan issues to the next those updates over there on when you come up for the? You could deal with the traffic.
I can switch the order. They sort of interrelate to each other. I mean, I can do it later, but it'll be somewhat disjointed. I mean, let me put it this way: the questions that came up last time were very much site plan. So if you want me to defer,
no, you can answer the questions if they're related to the site plans.
That's what we intend to do. So let me have Mr. Walter just
one quick question, Attorney. Yes, you said you had to file this cleanup plan. Is that filed with DEEP?
It will be. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, and you'll be providing a copy for wetlands.
The purpose of giving it to this commission and the Wetlands Commission and town staff and making it available to the public next week is so that everybody has plenty of time to review it before we get into hopefully the final review of it in September. That'll be a full 2+ weeks before this commission resumes, and 3 weeks before the Wetlands Commission has to deal with it.
And this property was not on the brownfield list. Is that correct?
Brownfield, small b, I mean, it is a contaminated site and it does require a cleanup. This is part of the Transfer Act, if you mean transfer.
Well, there was a lot of properties that were heavily contaminated that were on a brownfield list, and I don't see that this is on there. I see a small contamination, but not as large as, let's say, the Newington welding site that was.
In that sense, this is not a brownfield.
Thank you very much.
Well.
Commissioner Fox?
Quick question, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hollister.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned Geo Insight. Are they going to be doing the assessment and?
They have done it.
Yes, I know they've done it before. I see that, and they will be.
They've done it, and they will be presenting to you next time.
Oh, they've done. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the commission. Will Walter, professional engineer from Alfred Burnett and Company. We have a thumb drive. Pull up that thumb drive and go to the second one down, alt building location. Let me go through very quickly. There's 10 site-related comments. The first one from Mr. Minor is reduced number of buildings. One building is preferred, possibly to 4 stories. What we are proposing is to keep 3 buildings, and this is just a concept, but what we're showing is north is to the left. Previously, we had a building on the western slope, and that was a concern to the Inland Wetlands Commission. For a couple of reasons. They were concerned that it was going to cause erosion down the slope, as well as people maybe throwing garbage in the buffer. Anyways, we've taken that building on the western slope, which is the bottom of the page, and we're proposing to shift it up to the southeastern portion of the site, and then take the clubhouse that was over in that other locations on the southeast and bring it over to the western portion of the site. And what that does is effectively brings everything off the top of that slope 10 or 15 feet. So this is something that we feel the staff will be open to and the commissions will be open to. Next comment was add paved access to the rear of the buildings for emergency vehicles. We've met with the fire department, the fire marshal. They've reviewed the plans. We've incorporated all their concerns onto the plan that has been presented. So we feel like we've met all of their concerns and comments. Next one is to increase turning radii to accommodate full-size moving vans. We have adjusted the radii to meet the largest fire department vehicles, and the fire marshal's been satisfied with that. He's got a comment about all walkways to be concrete. We are proposing bituminous asphalt concrete walkways internal to the site. He's asking all curbing to be concrete or granite. We are proposing all curbing to be concrete. One of the things that he's talking about here that was also talked about by both commissions is to have a perimeter fence, and we're proposing a chain link fence around the west, north, and east side of the property that will prevent children from walking down to that fast track from our property. Next thing he's asking for is high-speed Wi-Fi should be provided throughout the property. TV and Wi-Fi cable will be provided to all apartments. Then he's asking about no smoking anywhere allowed on site, which will accommodate that. And then a couple of brief comments regarding lighting and landscaping, that we need to have a lighting plan shown behind the buildings for safety. We will show that. And then he has a comment, landscaping near the building and the town green needs to be designed to eliminate hiding places, and we'll certainly revise our plantings and accommodate that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Steve Allman. I'm a professional engineer with Alfred Benish and Company. I did the traffic impact study for this. Want to go through some of the questions that came up last time and then go over what's being handed out now. First, the question was raised in the public about crash data, where it was obtained and whether it was provided to you. The crash data was obtained from the Yukon Crash Repository, maintained by the state of Connecticut at University of Connecticut for the dates of January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2017. The data, the summarized data, and the tables are all presented in the appendix to the TIS, which was presented to the board. Left turn lane onto Cedar Street onto the site. Our review indicates that traffic volumes don't warrant a left turn lane. There's only 8 in the morning and 28 in the afternoon, and the analysis don't show that one is needed. However, just to also point out that this development will be reviewed by the State of Connecticut OSTA, Office of Traffic Administration, and they will make the final determination, since Cedar Street is a state road, whether or not we have to do that. But at this point, I don't believe one is necessary. The Commissioner asked whether the traffic light at Cedar at the site drive was owned by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I went back and confirmed that all the signals at the intersection studied are owned and maintained by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Someone in the public had asked whether the traffic counts were conducted when CCSU was in session. Yes, on April 19th, CCSU was in session. Now, lastly, we were also requested to look at other potential developments in the area. If you could put up the PDF that says other developments. Okay, I had discussions.
If you're mentioning the train station, if that's what you're talking about?
It's both.
Because,
yes.
You know, we've been studying it to be at a different location, and from what I understand, it could be 15, 20 years out. The town of Newington's leadership hasn't decided where they want to put this yet. So we're talking about something that may never come, or maybe 15 to 20 years out.
Correct. What this is really a study for your information. What is, I'll read the first paragraph, then we'll go from there. In response to the request from members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have reviewed the potential impacts on the roadway network that other anticipated developments in the vicinity of the site might have. Please note, there are no significant developments currently proposed that have made any applications for approval either to the town of Newington or the State Office of Traffic Administration. This letter is intended to give the Commission an idea of what impacts future developments may have to deal with on the roadway network when each development seeks approval. The analysis presented in this letter does not change the conclusions of the traffic impact study and supplemental data previously submitted for the Cedar Point residential development. I discussed this with Mr. Minor before he went on vacation, and essentially we looked at two areas. If you look at the plan, the area on the left, the light blue, the cyan, is areas around Myra Cohen Way, which are currently undeveloped. There was a hotel proposed there, but that application has since expired. Mr. Minor felt that that's probably more likely to be retail-oriented type of development. The dark blue, which is the industrial parcel across the street from our site, which is 565 and 549, is the latest possible location for the Hartford New Haven Rail Line train station. The one at Newington Junction has been kind of put on hold or set aside. A couple of things are they couldn't get enough parking there is one of the problems. This station, if built, would have, instead of the 100 spaces at Newington Junction, this would have up to 200 spaces, they believe. I spoke with DOT Planning and Forecasting and other people at DOT. Planning and Forecasting has not done any traffic. As you said, this is off into the future, but this is more to let you know what would happen if these were done. The retail development I assumed up on Myra Cohen Way is a 1,400 square foot standalone pharmacy, which is looking at the area, that parcel across the street from Starbucks is it's 2.5 acres. It's probably a good site for that. And the remaining 7 acres, we're assuming we could get 500,000 square feet of retail development. I went through and used the ITE trip generation for a park and ride lot with bus and light rail service for the 200 space train station, 500,000 square feet of shopping center, and a standalone pharmacy. That is anticipated, if those all happen relatively soon, we're looking at 325 trips in the morning and 579 trips in the afternoon. I distributed both the train station and the retail traffic separately on the roadway network, added those volumes to the 2019 post-development volumes I had done for Cedar Point. What I found was that the intersection of Cedar Street at Old Farm Road, Maple Hill Road, will fail both in the morning and afternoon peak periods. Fairly significantly, level of service F with an average delay of over 150 seconds per vehicle for those two periods. And Cedar Street at Finn Road, Route 9 northbound off-ramp, which is already having problems, it will also fail. Something to note that when I went through and was able to get a hold of the due diligence report from Connecticut DOT for the train station, they have identified that if the train station were to be located on this site, that significant improvements to Cedar Street from basically just west of the train station in our site through Maple Hill Road would need significant improvements, including the realignment or reconfiguration of Alumni Road and the other intersection. So this is, to be honest, these are all in the future. They're potential things that you need to be concerned with. I think one of the things that you do need to be concerned with is if you put retail over by Myra Cohen, really need to look at the Finn Road, Cedar Street intersection. That's kind of maxed out now. I don't know how you're going to improve that, but it's going to fail. And of course, everyone knows Maple Hill Road will be a problem. But these are all things beyond the scope of our development. They're not proposed. They're not, I won't say real, but they're just things that may happen and have no effect on our development. But you have my report and the appendices for it for your free use and perusal. And that's all I have at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse Thompson, Captain Thompson Architects, architect registered in the state of Connecticut. The file is, let's see, it's the one DK-NEW. I'm here to address some of the comments from the planner who was talking about a suggestion that this building be, the exterior be changed. They suggested a staggered roof line, inset, outset, exterior walls, a brick facade, varying colors, and large windows. And we wanted to do a quick walkthrough of why we are showing the buildings we are. So next slide, please. There you go. So when we started this project, what we did was we actually looked around at buildings in the local area and precedents that we felt were more in alignment with what was appropriate for the site. Hey, here's a picture of the General Martin Kellogg House in Newington. Next slide, please. We also looked at classic New England Grange halls, these sort of large, simple buildings with white clapboards and varying patterns, and this tradition in New England we've got of very elegant buildings. Next slide, please. And things like the Canterbury Shaker Village, which is an area that has a series of wood frame buildings around a town green that all work together and is part of our heritage. It's part of the buildings that we all built a while ago. Next slide, please. In the local area of the site of Cedar Point, what we see are predominantly gable-roofed buildings with clapboards, clapboard siding, light colors, and we wanted to make sure that our buildings could be harmonious with this, and which is why we didn't feel that a brick building or a single four-story building was appropriate for this site or this neighborhood. So what we did is, if you go to the next slide, please. This is an example of a building that we've done recently. It's a similar, a similar workforce housing affordability. It felt like a good precedent for this project. Next slide. We've got a nice entrance, good landscaping. It has white clapboards. Next slide, please. Simple forms, gable roofs, varying patterns of clapboards. Next slide. And this building here is a two-story building. We're proposing three-story buildings, but this is the closest precedent to what we're showing, and we felt like this was a good fit for Newington. So the next slide. So what we're proposing very specifically for this building is that the perspective we've shown was from a distance. You can't see the actual materials we're proposing, but on the right is a gable end of the building of what we're proposing, and you can see that we're trying to be specific here, and so we're showing the architectural details that mean that this will actually be a very high-quality building. There will be a water table course at the base with a two-part trim. The first story would have 8-inch reveal clapboards. There'll be a trim band, and then it will go to a 5-inch reveal clapboard at the top 2 stories, and then the gable end would have a 3-inch reveal as well. So we'd have a varying set of clapboards, all the same color, to keep the buildings calm. And then at the entrance on the left, you can see where you'll come when you come home. We've got a composite shiplap in vertical siding with a nickel gap reveal between it. Again, a very traditional material. But we've got some lively colors to, you'll know when you're home and you'll know which building and where you're headed for. The windows are all triple glazed vinyl windows, very energy efficient windows, large windows and lots of light into the project. We're showing a dark colored window and a dark colored trim to set off the light pattern and asphalt shingles above. So that's just a quick run through on how we got to where we got to, and we think they're very handsome buildings and will be a good fit for the neighborhood and the town. So thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, that's what we have prepared for tonight. So we're done with our presentation. So we're ready to yield the floor to the public or answer questions.
Okay, let's go to the commission and see if they have any questions. Commissioner Claffey.
I had a question on with the type of construction, fire suppression. I was the one that brought up the fire apparatus, and I see how now you've moved that to allow for trucks and ladders. Another question I have is the type of fire suppression system. Is it a 13R? Is there suppression in between the wood truss floors?
We're expecting this to be a full NFPA 13R system. It's a single-use building, 3 stories, so we think that a full 13 is not necessary for this construction type, but
You're just gonna have ceiling sprinklers, not
correct, not in between, they'll be
Not in
full,
bet-
yeah.
fully sprinkled, but not in between the floors.
Not
floor
concealed
system.
spaces,
Concealed
correct.
space, okay.
Yeah, and we would have full 1 hour separations between all units, typically 20 minutes to 1 hour on the corridor. It'll be a very safe building. 2 means of egress from the whole building.
So your common is only 1 hour?
Sorry, which what?
The common halls are 1 hour on your building?
Correct, and actually typically only required to be 20 minutes. It's much more unit to unit if something happens in someone's apartment next to you.
Yep. Is it gonna have dry system or all wet system?
It'd be a wet system. The attics might be a dry system just for freeze protection.
Okay.
Because it'll probably be insulated on the flat. So we would probably put insulation on cellulose along the
And
bottom of the truss.
that meets the, without doing the inner stipple or inner floor, it meets the requirement for distance on the back of those buildings that aren't reachable by apparatus?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to separate, the attic will have to be chopped into 3,000 square foot areas to get smoke control.
Okay,
on.
cool,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Definitely.
Okay, Commissioner Fox, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the traffic, where'd he go? Okay. You were talking about I think it was the Alumni Road and Maple Hill Avenue being an F.
That is if all those developments
Okay, yeah, well,
were done.
if I were doing something like that, I'd probably work that way. I don't know, we've been talking, and I think, you mentioned that you don't think that a left turn lane is necessary.
Into the site, correct.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, maybe that is, coming from the west, but I've been up and down Cedar Street, as everybody here has been during quote-unquote peak hours, which in the morning is maybe 6 to 8, 6 to 9, in the evenings at no later than 3 to 7, and you're gonna have some children there going to school. I feel I would like to know if those buses, the school buses, are going to be able to go pick up the kids in the project, in the development, because if they have to wait out on Cedar Street, as they do near the Churchill Bridge, Glen Oaks, the Berlin Turnpike Motels, and Hopkins Village, that would kind of be disastrous, I think. I mean,
It is my understanding that we have reached out, or the town planner has reached out to the Board of Ed and the bus company to find out if they will be willing to come onto the site or not, and we have not received any comment back from them. We were still reaching out and attempting to find out what the schools intend to do.
So the site is designed, though, to have a full fire engine, which would accept a full bus going in and
Absolutely.
everything. So it's being designed structurally and enough room for a large bus to go in there.
Yes.
It'll be up to the school department if they choose to go in or not.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Our site is designed and laid out so a bus could circumnavigate the entire site.
Yeah, it might be against their policy. I'm not sure what their policy is. Commissioner Fox, did you have anything else?
yeah, just real quick on traffic again. When something like Truck 1 is going into the development, if it is, if the radii is enough to accommodate it, they're stopping and they're going in. When you have a school bus dropping off or picking up kids, the length of time that they're in that lane is quite a bit longer. And so I don't know if you've taken that into consideration.
Again, we have reached out to the Board of Ed, and they're going to do what they want to do in the area. And they do all of Newington.
Have you thought of, like, how long it would take, what kind of response time you would get if you did happen to have the alarms go off and you require the fire apparatus going through all that traffic?
We have not done that. We've left that up to the fire marshal. If he has any concerns, to let us know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, before we go to Commissioner Sobieski, I'll ask the acting town planner. We've received a report from the fire marshal. Do you have that handy by any chance? Let me just check to see if there's a.
You want me to look for it while it's,
Yeah,
Commissioner
Commissioner Sobieski, your question.
Yeah, number one, that signal, you're right, it is owned by the DOT, but the power is paid by the developer. Okay? I
will
did
be.
check, no, I did check on that. Just so you know, I just want to make that, all right. Secondly, I believe the DOT, when we were at a meeting here, when they presented about the rail station, was 300 cars for parking. All right, with the flow around it, I'm just
Yeah.
remember what they had said. You know, it changes for a meeting depending upon who's talking. Anyway.
And the fact that planning and forecasting, the guys who actually do the traffic development, haven't even been asked to look at this site yet.
Well, I used to be in planning.
Yeah, so
All right.
I
Anyway,
talked to Mike about it, and
Mike Connors, yes.
yeah,
Yeah, his wife just passed away.
yeah, oh, really?
Anyway, my concern still is, and this is what Commissioner Fox is alluding to, is at 4 o'clock, that thing is 4 lanes of solid traffic,
Lieutenant Morgan.
okay? And trying to get emergency apparatus in there is going to be a nightmare. And my concern is the safety of the people that are going to be living there. It's nice to say, you know, let's build it, let's get affordable work housing, but I think I still have some very serious concerns about traffic in there. I mean, that is at 34,000 vehicles right now per day. Okay? That's in a 24-hour period, 1,300 and something in the rush hours, if not more. With both intersections, I believe either at C or D functioning right now, and you're going to be able to put another, I'm trying to remember your numbers, 25 vehicles to the left going into the center of town, and 75 or approximately going to the right, going onto Route 9 to work in town somewhere,
Yep.
I guess.
Well,
Okay.
that was the,
That's-
but there
that's-
is a signal
right.
there, and there is more than enough capacity at the signal to allow vehicles to
Correct,
exit.
but I'm
exit
concerned
the
with,
site.
you're not letting me finish, please. I'm concerned about the stacking as we go through. Because what's going to happen, every time that signal trips, you're going to stack vehicles up on 175.
So, hold on, please. All set, Noreen? Okay, Stanley, you want to wrap that up with your question?
Yeah, I'm just concerned if you take into the stacking issue into play.
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. In the stacking doesn't change that much with our development as opposed to with the development along there. And, as I said, that this is going before the OSTA, and they will be the final determiner whether or not there's a left turn put in or not. The issue becomes what happens to the east of the site. Do you cause problems by moving the through vehicles to the outside of the roadway when you're dealing with the McDonald's and all the other developments and Alumni Road as well? So they will look at that and they will make the determination. We'll have to go by what they say.
I have more questions, but I'll wrap it up.
No, if you have another question.
Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
All right. As far as the accidents data that you got from Yukon, which is supplied to them by DOT.
Yes.
What's the percentage of rear end collisions? Because what we're dealing with here is we're dealing basically with a 4-lane road. When somebody stops in the left lane to make a turn, and usually people whack each, because they're not.
Vast majority
Right.
are rear end and or side swipe.
Right. So
Along
that
the
is
corridor.
that's a serious issue up there.
That is to be expected on Cedar Streets, what we see on all arterials.
Right. Because
in
I
the state.
believe if I'm not mistaken, when the bridge was widened, they were going to put a left turn lane in. That was part of the OSTCA's recommendation at that time, but it never happened. That wraps it up for now. I have other questions, but I can go back.
As we all know, this was an automotive site.
Yes.
Is there any way that you've compared this new development to what it used to be as a automotive with new cars coming and going and trucks and public going to see it? Have you ever done any comparison there, even
I
though that
have
development
not.
was?
The issue would
older?
be that it's been gone for so long and so much else has happened along Cedar Street that it's really going to be an apples and oranges type of thing. I would imagine that a car dealership in the afternoon peak period would be heavier than this development. Probably a residential development has more traffic in the AM peak than the car dealership would, unless they have early service there. But what was happening back when Crest Motors was at its heyday, Cedar Street was a totally different roadway, so you really can't get a feel for it.
That's fair enough. Thank you very much. I'm going to have the town planner now read into the minutes a letter that we received from Chris Schroeder, the fire marshal.
So this was sent to Craig Minor from Chris Schroeder on August 1st. He says that he has reviewed the site plan for the proposed Cedar Point development on Cedar Street and have identified the following fire safety concerns. Number one, the plan shows only one fire hydrant within the complex. The installation of an additional fire hydrant will be required. And number two, I reviewed the apparatus turning movement plan with the town engineer, and it was agreed that our ladder truck would have difficulty maneuvering within the complex as shown. The town engineer recommends increasing the inside curve radii to reduce these concerns and allow for heavy snow furrows along the roadway.
Thank you. And that's been corrected, I believe, the applicant has stated. And then we have another letter from our Newington Police Department. If we could read that into the minutes, please.
This is from Lieutenant Michael Morgan. He says, Craig, I have no objection to the traffic impact study prepared by Vinesh Engineering as long as DOT agrees to not put the traffic light on flash during nighttime hours and that right turns on red be prohibited from both side streets/driveways as indicated in the report. And that was submitted on Thursday, August 16th.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions from the commissioners before we go to public? Yes.
One more question. Sorry, I want on the remediation of the sites there. Is there two? It's not a traffic issue.
Oh, okay. I just assumed, sorry.
I have a question on remediation of the site. Is there two different levels or two different standards for that site? For instance, if it was going to be a commercial site,
Yes,
and then there's another site standard for a residential site, am I correct?
correct.
All right. Has the DEP given you any confirmation or any idea as to if that's suitable right now for residential?
Right now, it's not, no.
Okay. Is there a time frame that you think that you're going to get it remediated?
There is a time frame, and that's what we're waiting for the final report. One thing I can tell you, just to give you an order of magnitude, the amount of soil, the cubic yards of soil that needs to be physically removed and taken off-site is less than 700 cubic yards.
Okay.
So that's, you know construction
Right.
sites, that's
So-
not a lot.
No. But what I'm concerned with is the water table on it and
Oh,
the
yeah.
water and stuff like that. I'm also concerned with the layout that you had in the back there towards the last building, towards, I guess, the north.
And the rain garden behind it.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Is that not in the contaminated area right now?
Some of it is, again, I think the better thing to do is the report that we're all going to get from Geo Insight identifies exactly where the soil needs to be excavated. I think there are some areas that are where that rear building is. The good news is it's fairly shallow and can be excavated pretty easily.
Okay, and if it can't be, then then you'd have to redesign this, would I be correct? If this cannot be remediated, it'd have to be redesigned if that's, so to keep the fenced-in area?
If you could not meet what are called the remediation standard regulations of the DEP, yes, you'd have to redesign the site or come up with some other measure, but I believe the conclusion that we're going to get is that this can be remediated.
And the other thing that I brought up, and I was just thinking about this, is that there may be people in there that are going to have to be walking. They won't not have a vehicle.
Yep.
There is no sidewalks on Cedar Street.
Right.
It might be a good thought to maybe consider putting them in.
Okay, how far would you recommend?
Well, you'd have to go at least down to the rail station.
Okay.
You know, And that would have to meet the state criteria, which is a 3-foot buffer from the edge of the road to the beginning of the sidewalk. I'm just asking. I don't know how much that would cost.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Claffey.
I have a question on the change of the design on this photo on the computer here, or screen.
Go ahead.
With that change from the previous one 2 weeks ago, has it been an advantage, disadvantage to all the criteria that goes into water, sheet flow? Have we gained more lot coverage, less, more parking, less parking? Could you give a little more insight on what came about to make that, because it's a drastic change. It looks, to me, looks a little different, pretty drastic. And how does that kind of correlate into why we went from 3 buildings, now it's like the whole site is being used?
That's a good question. Currently, under existing conditions, it's a sea of pavement out there. What we had previously proposed was a reduction of about half an acre, 3/4 an acre in pavement. This, I haven't run the calculations, but this is going to be approximately the same amount of impervious as we had previously shown under proposed conditions. The building footprints are not changing. We're maintaining the exact number of parking spaces. I mean, it's going to obviously go up a little less, or it'll go down a little bit, or go up a little, so I don't know. But everything is flowing from the south to the north of that site. So all that infrastructure capturing the water as it moves from south to north through the middle and to the north part of that site will remain the same. We're going to have to rerun our hydrologic analysis. We have to rerun our pipe analysis. But in terms of water, the 2 main things, water quality treatment and peak flow detention, I don't have any doubt that we're going to still meet the town standards.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Fox.
One more, Chairman. Through the chairman, the site plan, when we take up the site plan later on,
Well, the site plan, excuse me, we're going to hear the site plan issues later on in the agenda.
Yeah.
So if you have a site plan question for them,
Okay,
if you could reserve it until we have it on the agenda later. They've promised me that they're going to stick around, and so that we can get into site plan issues. All right? Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go to the public if there's no other questions. All right, so we're going to go to public participation now. And I would ask that if there's anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Hi, Ryan Beach, 16 Kenlock Street. I had kind of written some stuff down, but I don't think there's a particularly receptive crowd, so I just want to address the commission directly and say that I appreciate the amount of concern that has gone into the project. I just think that it's unfortunate that there's not more people who are speaking up in favor, but I wanted to do so just as a resident of this town, as a new resident of this town, as someone that thinks that it is important to have affordable housing in our state. This may not be the perfect time. This may not be the perfect place, but I would trust the commission to take all this into account, which I think are very valid concerns raised on both sides, and make the final decision. I thank you for your consideration of this reasonably complicated issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this application?
David Pells, 18 Spur Lane, Newington. I think affordable housing is important. I mean, I wasn't happy to hear that, our town has somewhere around 8.3% affordable housing. I think we really need to get that number up if we want places for our children and grandchildren to be able to live. So I would urge the commission to work diligently with the developer and see if you all can make it happen.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anybody else? All right, anybody wishing to speak in opposition of the application, please come forward. Could state your name and address for the record, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Gary King, 200 Bonham Vista Avenue, Newington. I've been a resident of this town for 61 years. I'm not opposed to the concept of this development. What I am opposed to is it stretching our resources as a town. Mr. Sobinski, you brought up the sidewalks, the traffic. I drive up and down Cedar Street daily. You can't make a left turn in the time that the study has said. You just can't do it. You know, there's plenty of other places. Nobody has addressed the stress on the education of our town. Nobody has stressed our public services, the fire, the police, clean up all that. I just don't see this being a good thing for the town that I've lived in for so long. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition to this?
Gary Bowles, 28 Burden Lane, Newington. Not in favor or against. The Town Planning and Zoning Commission should only approve this petition after the following stipulations are strictly agreed to. The remaining remediation work must be fully completed to the full and complete satisfaction of the town, state, and maybe federal government. The safety of the children and adults in this complex is of paramount importance over any money that might be saved. Now yesterday, I spoke with Marissa Washburn at the Connecticut Department of Transportation concerning this project and its ramifications. I made the suggestion that Dakota Partners should put in a rear ingress and egress at Cedar Point because of the heavy traffic on Cedar Street. Mrs. Washburn fully endorsed my suggestion. She said that the developers should work with the town of Newington to put this road in and make it happen. Why is rear access so important? Two scenarios. In case of an accident on Cedar Street, which could prevent emergency vehicles from getting into the apartment complex, or residents having to vacate the complex in case of an emergency. Also, something we may not realize, when the I-84 reconstruction begins in Hartford, the only east-west route from Route 9 to the Berlin Turnpike to access I-91 and I-84 will be Cedar Street Route 175. Rear entrance and exit is very important and should not be ignored. Also, I called the DOT for an update on the Alumni Road Cedar Street project and talked with Hugh Hayward. He told me that the DOT was waiting on the town of Newington. Once I heard this, I made a beeline right to Town Manager Lane's office and told her. She was surprised because she, the mayor, and the town planner met with the DOT officials in late June and July 2017 to advise them that our town council voted to proceed with the realignment project. Once back home, I called Mrs. Washburn, and she confirmed that there was a misunderstanding because she was at the meeting with Mr. Hayward, our town manager, our mayor, and our good town planner, where they confirmed the vote of the town council to proceed with the Alumni Road Cedar Street realignment project. She also said that she would follow up on this important matter. I also want to thank Commissioners Payne and Sobieski for initially developing this new approved plan for a solution to the Alumni Road Cedar Street hazardous situation. So hopefully, because of my due diligence and telephone calls and visits, the Alumni Road Cedar Street project will eventually move forward. This really needs to happen before a very serious accident claims any victims. And you know something? Just maybe this whole Cedar Point project should be delayed until all of the above stipulations are met and the Alumni Road Cedar Street project is fully completed. In a nutshell, that's the right way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Jure Kulgis. I live on 6 Pebble Drive. Again, I'm a professional engineer. I want to thank first all the commissioners, Commissioner Sobieski, Commissioner Fox, and Commissioner Claffey for raising all the questions. Pretty much it's a list of all the town residents. You know, we have the same concerns. Going back, question by question, environmental, cleanup. We need to make sure that the cleanup is done properly for living space. Traffic. We talk about the school bus. Looks like they have not looked into the traffic study. Even if a bus needs to go inside the development, it's still a traffic impact. That was not included in the study. And if it needs to stop, in Cedar Street, they also need to have a study about it. And we should look into that, not only assuming things, but I would think that they will have to do a study on both cases. We talk about the dumpster. That was one question that was raised at the last meeting. It's only one dumpster, and the solution was to increase the number of trucks. Has that been taken into account, in the study?
We're going to be addressing that under our site plan issues.
Okay. And the next is the railroad station. It looks like from what we heard today, there is an issue with the parking spaces if we have a new railroad station, which they will be adding 200 parking spaces or maybe possibly 300. How many parking spaces are we adding right now as part of this development? It's almost the same quantity, and they're talking about, doing major improvements to Cedar Street because of all of the developments. But again, these are all just numbers. And we definitely should look into all of these different impacts. So thank you, Commissioner Sobieski. You brought good questions, and we have the same concerns. We just want to get more answers, please.
Certainly.
Thank you
very much. And if the attorney wants to answer them as they go, or if he wants to reserve until afterwards.
Taking notes.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
William Prentice, 61 Maple Hill Avenue. I'm not sure where you're getting your designs from, but the Kellogg Eddy House, I think, was built in the 1700s, so I don't think we want that look. That looks like Fort Dix, really. The rainwater, I can't believe that rain garden is going to accept the runoff from that whole complex. I mean, where's the rest of the water going? I mean, there's going to be oil on the ground from cars. I can't believe that's all somehow getting behind that building and sitting in that rain garden. Where is it?
I think there's 2 exits to, there's another small rain catch area farther up on the site, I believe.
They've done calculations on the roof water and where all the water is going to go?
I believe they've done their calculations, and under site plan, our town engineer will be reviewing all of it.
And is this privately owned, or has the town got to plow this?
No, this is private development.
Yeah, I mean, I was on Cedar Street at 12 minutes after 4 today, and if there was a problem in that complex, somebody was going to die. Because the state trooper was trying to come east with 4 lanes of traffic, and there's no place for you to go. You can't move out of the way. You're just sitting there. I mean, the light turned green for Maple Hill Avenue, and nobody moved. No one could go anywhere. So fire truck, ambulance, it's not going to work out well. I mean, I'm not against affordable housing. Don't get me wrong. You could put this somewhere where it'd be safer to get in and out of it. But I mean, I live 1,000 feet up from the intersection in Maple Hill, and sometimes I can't get out of my driveway 1,000 feet away. So this doesn't work in this spot in Newington. Somewhere else, maybe it'll work, but not here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come up and speak in opposition, please come forward.
Good evening, Christopher Damon, 24 Ponderosa Lane. I travel both Maple and Cedar on a day-to-day basis, and during rush hours, and I enunciate hours, trying to take a left, even coming out of, say, the gas station, that Citgo station there, off-peak hours can be trying at best. Going to work, I take a left off of Maple going into Cedar. And in the morning, sometimes I'm sitting at that light 2 to 3 times as it is. So you're talking about not adding a left turn lane, the bus issues, and the traffic alone. I mean, obviously that's the biggest issue we have. Like everybody else, I'm not opposed to affordable housing. I grew up in it myself. But I think that location is definitely not best for it. I mean, yes, it currently looks As we look at it now, it's undesirable, but I think we got to kind of think of a different option. And if you add another traffic light there, once again, now you're going to start backing up even farther, up and down Cedar, all the way past CCSU as it is. And I come off of Fern coming home from work. I'm stuck over there sometimes for a while because just to get to Cedar from Fern, I'm stuck at the Stop and Shop. I can't even get past there. Once I get beyond Stop and Shop, I'm good. I can get in the 2 left turn lanes. So unfortunately, I am opposed to this at this location. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ron Otis, 95 Hawley Street, and I have a 3-family on East Cedar Street, and there's times at first thing in the morning when people are going to work and late in the afternoon, if I try to get out of the 3-family and it's on the north side of the street, and if I try to take a left to take another quick left down Hawley Street, I can't do it. It's just gridlock. So I take a right. It's not a big inconvenience, but it just goes to show the amount of traffic that's on Cedar Street. And that's on the east end. The west end with Route 9 and all the businesses and whatnot, it would be even worse. And to say that adding a couple of hundred cars in a parking space isn't going to affect anything, frankly, is ludicrous. When the people in there are trying to go to work, and if you know, I can see the cars backing up internally in that parking area with 20 cars in line waiting to get out. So for that reason and the safety and all the other issues that people have brought up, I'm opposed to the Cedar Point project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Maureen Klett, 104 Harold Drive. First of all, I also want to add my thanks to Mr. Fox and Mr. Sobieski for your thoughtful questions. And I guess I'm a little confused because I don't know if TPZ runs things differently than the town council, but I thought a public hearing was for the public to come forward and not to have a back and forth debate about issues. But I appreciate.
We're not having a back and forth debate issue.
Okay.
I might have tried to answer a few people's questions because that's what we do here. We try to answer the public's questions.
Your public hearing then are held much differently than how the town council conducts theirs. So I have a couple of requests. I do appreciate the information that has been brought back to the table by the developers. I did go on to the Yukon Crash Repository site and tried to figure out how they looked at the accident numbers. And it looks to me like they should be able to print off for you a PowerPoint with the information as to what they use to get those numbers. So I hope that this body is just not going to take what this group of developers have told you, but will request that they provide for you, if you haven't received it already, a PowerPoint on the on what actually was looked at, because as I said, and I don't want to repeat myself, I appreciate the chairman or vice chairman allowing me to speak again tonight. I know former Mayor Woods will remember this when we looked at Garfield Street and the numbers we were given on accidents can be categorized very differently. And as I remember, Steve, some of those cars were accidents that occurred actually in Mill Pond. So I think we should make sure that what we're looking at is really relevant data. Secondly, I would like to make the request that you not only read into the record the statement that was that you read from Detective Division Commander Michael Morgan about the traffic, but that you also read into the record what was referred to as correspondence from Mr. Minor to the developers. He spoke about Wi-Fi. I'm sure there must be, he made mention, one of these gentlemen made mention of other requests that Mr. Minor has made representing us, the people of Newington. So I would respectfully ask that you also read into the record the correspondence that went from Mr. Minor to the developers, because at this point, I'm
problem.
thinking.
We'll take care of that.
I'm thinking this is a public hearing to determine whether you're going to allow the zone change. As you said, you're going to discuss the other information, and I think we should know what it is he's representing us is suggesting would be acceptable. I don't, as far as it being handsome buildings, I guess the eye is in the beholder. Certainly, they weren't, in my opinion, handsome buildings, and I think if they are, the gentleman that made that comment should take them to his community. I am not opposed to workforce development housing. There have been, in 30 years that I've, been around representing the town in some capacity, there's only been 3 times that my husband and I have turned out for the same issue. One was for Cedar Mountain. The other was when they wanted to put 10-story high-rises over where the Stop and Shop on Kids Lane. That's how serious we take it. I don't live anywhere near this. It isn't going to affect me unless I happen to be going on Cedar Street to drive onto Route 9. It's not going to affect me in the manner in which it's going to affect some of the people that live here, Mr. Prentice and others. But I feel strongly that this is not the right location to put 108 units of any kind of housing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Yes.
Tim Hollister, if I could just clarify something that Mrs. Clutch just asked. The letter from Dakota Partners, the black ink is Mr. Minor's memo. The red is Dakota's response to Mr. Minor's memo, so you have it right in front of you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're going to read that into the minutes. If one of the commissioners have that, it was in our packet. It was a letter from July 27th. July 27th, letter from, it's in our packet?
I have one dated August 16th. One that he says it's his suggestions.
Commissioner Payne, I think it was just passed out today.
That one is, yes, the suggestions. If you could.
One, not this one, because this isn't his.
No,
This is.
I would like you to read the one that is on the town letterhead that was addressed to them, with the understanding that these were the town planner's suggestions. I don't think the commissioners necessarily agree or not agree with all of them, but they were from the town planner and they will be discussed with the commissioners. But let's read them into the minutes, please.
You putting it up there? This is the memo. This is a letter to Timothy Hollister, Esquire, from Town Planner Craig Minor, dated August 16th, 2018. Is on Newington letterhead. Petition 26-18, site plan approval at 550 Cedar Street, Cedar Point, in accordance with CGS Section 8-30G, Dakota Partners, Inc., applicant Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, LLC, owner Timothy S. Hollister, 1 Constitution Plaza, Hartford, Connecticut. Contact. The Cedar Point apartments might be characterized as affordable, but they should not be second class. The project should be built like any market rate apartment project, with access, safety, quality, and amenities at the standard currently being expected by tenants and provided by developers for new apartment developments in the region. The following changes to the site and the apartments would go a long way toward making this a residential development that the residents of Newington would be pleased to see added to the local housing supply. Site: reduce the number of buildings. 1 building is preferred, possibly up to 4 stories. 2, add paved access to rear of building or buildings for emergency vehicles.
3, increase turning radii to accommodate full-size moving vans. 4, all walkways to be concrete. 5, all curbing to be concrete or granite. 6, entire perimeter should be fenced. Front facing should be decorative style. 7, high-speed Wi-Fi should be provided throughout the property. 8, no smoking allowed anywhere on site. Lighting and landscaping. 1, a lighting plan needs to be modified to show lighting behind the buildings. Lighting should emphasize areas that would expose criminal activity. 2, landscaping near buildings and the town green need to be designed to eliminate hiding places. Exterior. 1, use the Cedar Grove apartment proposal for the National Welding Site as a guide, including staggered roofline, inset, outset, exterior walls, brick facade, varying colors, and large windows. 2, incorporate a comprehensive multi-camera monitoring system for buildings and grounds with high-capacity NVR accessible by the Newington Police Department. Page 2. 3, incorporate buildings access measures including electric locks and credential readers. 4, exterior stairwell doors should be exit only with door monitoring devices that will alert building management when an exterior door is left open. Interior, elevators should be provided to access all floors. 2, high-speed Wi-Fi should be provided within all apartments and common building spaces. All ceiling height, number 3, all ceiling heights should be at least 8 feet. 4, delete indoor gathering spaces between hallways. 5, incorporate a comprehensive multi-camera monitoring system for common entries, elevators, hallways, stairs, basement storage, and trash rooms with high capacity NVR accessible by the Newington Police Department. 6, bright lighting should be provided in all common entries, hallways, stairwells, basements, and basement storage and trash rooms. 7, trash rooms should be provided inside building or buildings and trash moved outside to central dumpsters by building management. 8, eliminate basement laundry room. Washers and dryers should be provided within each apartment. 9, all apartments to have ducted HVAC, no through-the-wall or window units. HVAC and water heaters to be located within each apartment, with water heaters having a minimum 40-gallon capacity. Apartment HVAC thermostats and water heaters to be individually Wi-Fi controlled. 10, all toilets to be energy efficient, dual flush type. 11, all interior apartment walls to be sound insulated. 12, all apartment windows to be supplied with window treatments. 13, apartment entry doors should be vandal resistant with grade 1 restricted keyway lock sets and deadbolts and full perimeter sound gasketing. 14, flooring for common entries, stairs, basements, and basement storage and trash rooms should be high quality hard surfaces. 15, flooring for hallways should be high quality carpet. 16, flooring for main areas of apartments should be hardwood or, quote, pergo type planking. Flooring for kitchens and baths to be ceramic or porcelain tile. 17, cabinetry for kitchens and bathroom vanities in apartments should be plywood box type, not particle board with solid wood doors. 18, countertops for kitchens, cabinets, and vanities in apartments should be 3-centimeter granite with undermount sinks, stainless steel in kitchen and vitreous china in bathroom vanities. 19, kitchen backsplashes should be tile. Shower and bathtub walls should be tile at least 80 inches high. 20, appliances in apartments should be 36-inch wide 2-door or 3-door refrigerators with bottom freezer, 30-inch wide stoves, ducted range hoods, built-in microwaves, and dishwashers, all with stainless steel fronts plus a 0.75 horsepower or greater garbage disposer. 21, interior apartment doors should be 2 or 3 panel. Baseboards should be MDF of at least 5-inch in height and at least 3-inch MDF door casings. Page 3. Number 22, all interior latch sets to be lever style. 23, closet shelving and hanging bars to be wood, not closet-made wire type. 24, television pre-wires, power and cables should be supplied in all apartment living rooms and bedrooms at a height of 60 inches. Number 25, no smoking allowed anywhere in buildings. These are my own suggestions and should not be construed as coming from the TPZ. CC file. End of page 3.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Claffey. And now we'll go to public participation. Please state your name and address for the record.
Gail Bedraco, 21 Isabel Terrace. I want to thank the developers for addressing many of the concerns that were mentioned at the last public hearing. But there's a few that I had brought up that I'm really not quite satisfied or have some questions on. At the last meeting, and Commissioner Sobieski mentioned it at this meeting, we talked about the lack of continuous sidewalks along Cedar Street. Now, I know the residents of Victory Gardens make very good use of Fast Track. They're always on the sidewalk, walking to Newington Junction, walking to downtown Newington, and there are people in wheelchairs, scooters, children, whatever. But from this particular development, there is no safe access to either the Cedar Street station or downtown Newington. Now, you asked Commissioner Sobieski, where should these sidewalks be? And I'm saying it's got to be from the complex itself to the Connecticut Fast Track. And I also suggest going up the other way and hooking it up with the sidewalks that are on Cedar Street. These people, presumably, if there's affordable housing, you're going to have people without transportation options, and they're going to be walking or want to be walking along the side of one of the busiest roads in Newington. So please take that into suggestion. Secondly, I'm glad that there will be a fence protecting children from the high-speed rail line. But a chain link fence is certainly not going to add to the visual appeal of your development. So if you can possibly think about something different, I think it would add to the aesthetics. And the last thing, I know regarding the environmental contamination, you did say, I'm glad to see a complete cleanup plan is going to be in place and presented. But a plan is just a plan until it's completed. And personally, I think it's irresponsible to approve any zone change to residential based on a plan. I don't think a zone change should take effect until the site is fully remediated and audited and certified by DEEP, and not just simply rely on the certification by an LEP subcontracted by a contractor. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to come up and speak in opposition, please come forward.
I have to read, I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
State your name and address for the
My
record,
name
please.
is Leanne Wetherell-Menke, and I live at 112 Northwood Road. I'm here tonight to express my concerns with the application for proposed housing on Cedar Street currently under TPZ consideration. I'm not here as a proponent for or as a protester against the proposed use of construction for affordable housing. In the interest of full disclosure, I will tell you that I currently serve on the board of a local affordable housing complex. I believe that affordable housing can be an asset to a town if it's built and operated in the right manner. I'm not here to debate the merits of this 108-unit complex as affordable housing. I am here to question the viability and wisdom of adding 108 units of any type of housing to the town of Newington. My concern lies in whether or not our current public safety infrastructure is able to support 108 additional households. Are police, fire, highway, EMS equipped to handle this additional load? Increasing the number of households will proportionally increase the number of emergency calls received. Are we able to respond? An example of what I'm concerned about is as follows. The recent big dig next door at the bus garage prompted me to start thinking about fuel consumption by town vehicles. Our town emergency departments have to be prepared for emergency situations, including having enough fuel stored to get through any disastrous situations, snowstorms, etc. If you think back to the October snowstorm a few years ago, our town police, fire, highway, and other public safety departments really stepped up and kept us safe, responding to approximately 300 emergency calls in the first 2 days of the aftermath alone. Getting the roads plowed, assisting in getting electricity back up, storm cleanup. Our crews worked nonstop for about a week. To do so, the emergency and highway vehicles required diesel fuel to run. Our town at the time had about a week's worth of diesel in the storage tanks at Milk Lane and at the bus garage. My understanding is that after a week's worth of yeoman's work, our emergency crews had just about enough fuel to handle the job through that week in the storage. Fortunately, we were not required to use the school buses to evacuate folks during that storm. If we had, perhaps our fuel reserve would not have made it through the whole week. Fast forward to the current state of our diesel fuel storage. About a year or so ago, the storage tank at Milk Lane was replaced with a smaller capacity tank, reducing our storage by somewhere in the range of 2/3 to half of the previous capacity. In December of last year, the fuel leak was discovered at the bus garage and the tanks were removed, reducing our storage capacity by another 12,000 gallons. If my calculations are correct, we currently have somewhere in the range of 25 to 33% of our previous capacity for diesel fuel storage. What happens if we have another emergency situation, when we have another emergency situation, where we must be self-reliant to fuel our fire trucks, our highway plows, our buses to facilitate an evacuation? It's my understanding that another tank has been requested under this year's budget, but we would still be well below where we were 4 years ago, and it's not in place right now. If we only have a few days of fuel during an emergency situation, will our police, fire, and other emergency services be forced to strictly prioritize call response? This is the kind of situation that prompts me to ask if the town of Newington is in a place where we can realistically add any additional housing. Can the emergency infrastructure in town support what we currently have, never mind increasing the load? I would like to know if the various emergency and public safety departments, police, fire, EMS, highway, and others have been consulted as to the impact this proposed additional housing, as well as the current status of our infrastructure will have on their ability to function in the highly professional and efficient manner we have all come to expect, as well as the potential impact this will have on their various budgets to keep services at this level. I believe if it hasn't been done already, our town planning and zoning should be consulting with those departments directly regarding this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come forward in opposition? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Sandy Austin Goldstein, 84 Moreland Avenue. 550 Cedar Street, the site where Dakota Partners would like to build Cedar Point Workforce Assisted Housing, is currently on the state's list of contaminated or potentially contaminated sites and is considered a hazardous waste facility as defined by Connecticut General Statute. The application from Dakota Partners made no mention of this or the fact that at previous testing, TPH, total petroleum hydrocarbons, and ETPH, extractable petroleum hydrocarbons, concentrations exceeded what the state allows as the limits for residential land use, some as much as 70 times higher. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, said in a public statement that TPH is a term used to describe a broad family of several hundred chemical compounds that originally come from crude oil. The amount of TPH found in a sample is useful as a general indicator of petroleum contamination at that site, and animal studies have shown effects on the lungs, central nervous system, liver, kidney, developing fetus, and reproductive system from exposure to TPH compounds. From the late 1960s until 2000, when it was sold, the property was used as a 30,000 square foot auto dealership and service garage with 18 bays, 6,700 square foot auto body shop, and had 5 underground oil storage tanks. The engineer's report, compiled on behalf of the owners and available to the public, said when the dealership closed, hazardous waste remained on site for 10 years. 1,200 gallons of waste oils and wastewater and over 2,000 pounds of paint and corrosive liquids like battery acid remained on the property until they were finally removed by an environmental cleanup company in 2010. The report also indicates that 550 Cedar has already been through rounds of investigation and remediation through multiple phases without success over decades. What happens if ground is broken, attempts are made to build and simultaneously remediate, and they can't get it up to residential standards? The big picture of extent of contamination is not publicly known. The last available information has samples in 23 out of 33 areas of concern originally identified by engineers, indicating elevated levels of TPH and or ETPH. Many of the remaining AOCs had TPH or ETPH levels labeled as NA, meaning not analyzed, meaning they were not tested at that time. Results of soil and groundwater testing conducted early this year are not yet available to the public. It is my sincere hope that Newington TPC does not vote to decide if this land should be zoned residentially unless it can be determined if it is safe to do so.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Hi, my name is Rich Klett, 104 Harold Drive in Newington, obviously. I have been involved in public safety and security for well over 45 years in the town of Newington. So this topic is very important to me. I'm concerned basically to the point that I feel if I didn't put my concerns on the table, that and if something were to happen without these being considered, I'd feel terrible. I brought up last week a left-hand turn coming from the Britain into the complex. I know they addressed it earlier today, but I don't think it's satisfactorily answered. A little antidote to that is we had numbers given to us about people coming out of the complex, going to the center of Newington to work apparently, and going westbound out of the complex. And then we had people returning from the west side, and those numbers don't match. It's like the 35 people who went to New Britain or to Route 9, they never came back then, so they it didn't add up. Okay. I'm also concerned coming into the complex with no deceleration lanes, so that people can move and have a little cushion and cars can flow, and it's a lot better than taking basically a 90-degree turn at the speeds that we're accustomed to on Cedar Street. Now, Mr. Bowles brought up a point about egress. You got one way in. Okay, I don't know if anybody knows, but when the fire department comes to a fire and they see smoke, well, they have to put water on the fire. Easy concept. But here in Newington, if they saw smoke, they'd be dropping a 5-inch line in the parking lot. And once you drop that 5-inch line, there is no other emergency vehicles coming in. So without that, you're not getting in and you're not getting out. And I think you got to address those issues. Those are significant as far as I'm concerned and could be catastrophic. I don't like the idea of sidewalks. You have 108 units. Well, let's say, and I don't know how many kids, we're talking around between 30 and 40 kids. And kids are going to be kids. They're going to want to go to the center. They're going to want to go down and maybe have a coffee or go down to Stop and Shop. And we're providing them no avenue to get there. We've had discussions over Alumni Road in the past. We've had the neighbors from Vincent Drive, the landlocked neighborhood of Newington. And we tried to work out a solution where we could fix Cedar Street and provide them sidewalks. And I don't know where that is at this point. And they did talk about it coming back, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So that's where I am. I am concerned about the safety. I don't care whether they have affordable housing, workforce housing, but this is, and real estate is location, location, location. In this case, it's the worst location, the worst location, the worst location.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? If you could check the other room, please. Anybody else wishing to speak? Please come forward.
Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. As a single parent 30 years ago who had to move in with my mom in order to provide a home for my 7-year-old daughter, I would have loved to have seen some kind of housing like this available to me. It wasn't. And if it were, and it were on Cedar Street, I'd think twice about it. My questions are more towards the comments that were made at the last meeting that the median rent in Newington is $1,600. I just was wondering where that information came from. And also that approximately 32 children would be living in that complex, and half of them would be relocated from Newington, so it wouldn't be an impact on the school. Having applied for affordable housing, senior housing, I know that there's all types of funding that's available, and it depends on the funding that is used to build these complexes as to what the criteria is. I know that they gave the guidelines for the income, but I'm just wondering, for instance, like with Newington Housing Authority, they give certain points up to a certain number of years that a resident has lived in Newington.
I looked at the workforce affordable housing or assisted housing in Old Saybrook, and I believe some units were set aside for people that lived in motels, people that were homeless, people that wouldn't normally apply for this type of housing. I believe they also were units set aside for employees of the municipality. I don't know that it has any bearing on the decision that you're going to make, but seeing it was mentioned, I'm just curious as to how, if it is approved, it's going to work as far as applications. How can you project who's going to live there if you don't know who's going to apply? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Anybody else wishing to come up and speak? Anybody else? Okay, one more time?
One more time. Ron Otis, still 95 Holly Street, Newington. In terms of the affordability, I'm wondering if, she just mentioned the average rent is $1,600. I have a 3-family. So I guess I'm already part of the Affordable Act because I'm nowhere near that in my 3-bedroom or my 2-bedroom, and I have an efficiency that's, wouldn't come under the heading of anything, but it's so small. But anyway.
$1,600 was a full rent, but we'll have the developers go over that again for you, for everybody.
All right.
I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm wondering if any questions have been put out to landlords as to what their rents are. My 3 units would help towards the, coming up with the percent you need for affordable housing. I mean, my places are very nice, and matter of fact, I fixed them up to the point where I would live, if I couldn't live on Holly Street any longer, I'd move in. So they're nice units. They're not some dump.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think the council needs to go around, maybe ask what the rents are, and maybe we wouldn't need this. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last, anybody else want to speak? No? Okay, the applicant has a chance to answer any of the questions. If you could address at least the school kids. It's my understanding that this commission does not have the authority to base our decisions on the impact of a school system. Am I wrong or am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And same thing with financial. If we put conditions on a developer for certain things, if they're reasonable, we can't take in consideration any financial. Wouldn't you say that too?
Yes, I agree. And we brought up school children just to make the point that we want to make sure that the site is safe for them, both environmentally and Dakota's agreed to put in a fence to make sure that no one goes down to the railroad tracks and so forth. So we're happy to answer those questions. I'll just briefly say I didn't have time to get it prepared for tonight, but certainly for the next meeting. You recall me referring to the so-called Rutgers study, which is the census that we have of school-age children. I went back and rechecked the math. For the next meeting, we will give you the actual pages of the study, but it does project in this top type quality rental housing, 1 and 2 bedroom units in this rent range, a total of 32 school-aged children. And the other part of it, that we would expect about half of those to be relocations within Newington, is based on Dakota's experience with other similar housing in other jurisdictions.
Okay, very good. And one of the questions was the density. There were several people that were worried about the density. The maximum allowed density in the proposed WAHD zone is 18 units per acre. Am I correct? And
yes, and I think Mr. Minor addressed that in a memo, and there are other densities in town that are higher.
Yeah, and I just want to bring that out to the public. As examples, our elderly housing in a BTZ zone can have 58 units per acre. And in apartments in a B/TC zone, we're allowed to have 43 units per acre. And in the affordable housing, in the BTZ zone, we're allowed up to 58 units per acre. And on affordable age-restricted housing, in the R12 and R7 zones, we're allowed up to 20 units per acre. So I just want to get that on the record. I have a few additional questions for the attorney. Your previous plan, before you changed the building, showed 2 open spaces near the Cedar Street. Was that intended as just open space, or were you intending to use it for anything else, any other development? I know now you've made a change in the layout, but if you could explain that, I'd appreciate it.
There's a definition of, I believe it's called usable open space or something like that in your regs, and you need to provide a certain square footage. The area closest to the road was not taken into consideration as part of that calculation, and not to say, people wouldn't have congregated there, but it was not envisioned that that would be usable open space.
Did you have, was there intentions of using it for an additional use?
No.
No, there was no other intentions on it. Okay. Okay, I just want to get that clear. So what we have proposed is exactly what we have proposed.
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions? Yes.
On the egress, coming in and out, pedestrian egress, is there something that you can do? Because the site will more than likely have pedestrian traffic in and out. How can you make the site safer?
I'm sorry, the door closed. How can you make the what?
The site safer.
For pedestrians?
For pedestrian surface.
We're gonna talk about the sidewalks and stuff under our site plan issue.
Okay, all right, I'll wait for them.
Hopefully they'll address that and under our site plan. Is there any other, Commissioner Sobieski?
One more quick thing I forgot to mention. The DOT had used that front part of the property as a staging area when they were rehabbing the bridge, or rebuilding the bridge.
Right.
Did they leave any contaminants on there at all? Do you know of? Because I saw heavy equipment parked there. I saw steel beams and stuff, and the trucks were there and stuff. I'm asking, has that been looked at?
I will ask Geo Insight that specific question. I mean, I guess I'd be surprised if DOT trucks would drop oil that would.
No, that was private contractors. It wasn't DOT trucks. We had private contractors doing it.
Anyway, just remember the contamination that's there on the site accumulated over 35 years.
Right. I remember it being built. I've been here for a long time.
So, yeah. So
I will
ask them.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that because I just thought about that when they had.
Just so I'm clear, so you're talking right along the frontage of Cedar Street?
Yeah, it would be between where your proposed driveway is and the rail line.
Okay.
That's where they had stored up quite a bit of material.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else? Any other questions from the commissioners? Yes.
Question about the request for no smoking. Are there smoking detectors and CO2 detectors in the facilities, and how are they managed?
I'm sure that's a building code issue. I would imagine they are required. I'll let the staff.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be smoke detectors in every unit, CO detectors in every unit as well, and they're hardwired together, so they're to a control panel.
Who manages that?
Who managed? So they'll all be tied to the fire alarm system and feedback to.
And it goes to the fire departments?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Excuse me, one quick question, Commissioner Payne. Are you going to put elevators in?
No, there's no elevators proposed right now.
How would the Americans with Disabilities Act?
They're all going to be on the first floor. Spaces are, the applicant, I believe, has provided spaces for ADA on first floor. Is that
We will
correct?
meet all Fair Housing Act, and the accessible units will be on the accessible level at the ground floor.
All right, so you don't need, so in other words, if all the first floor was loaded, you couldn't accept anybody else's ADA requirements? That's what you're telling me?
Say that again, sorry.
Okay, if whatever number of units are on the first level, and those were all filled, and somebody came in and needed an ADA apartment, how would you, I thought that the ADA required that all floors be made accessible.
No, only 4-story buildings, greater than 3-story buildings are required to have elevators.
Okay, thank you.
So and Connecticut state law has a recommendation that upper floors and buildings that are not served by elevators do not have to be accessible units.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, the audience has a chance to have any additional questions or rebut anything from the applicant. Does anybody have anything else? Any other questions? All right, we're going to leave this public hearing open because we have, we're going to leave both of these petition 25-18 and 24-18 and 25-18. We're going to leave them open. All right, so we're going to proceed to our next petition. If the secretary could read petition 31-18, please.
Petition 31-18, special permit 3.4.9, interior lots at 179 Meadow Street. Estate of Faye H. Karanian, owner applicant Mark Friend, 81 Rankin Road, Glastonbury, Connecticut. Contact.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Mark Friend, and I'm an engineer and a soil scientist with Megson Higo and Friend Engineers and Land Surveyors in Glastonbury, Connecticut. Also with me tonight is the applicant, Chris Karanian, who's sitting behind me.
All right, hold on 1 second, please. Okay, you can proceed now. Thank you.
Okay. And the application we have before you under this public hearing is for a 3.4.9 special permit for 2 interior lots, which are located on 179 Meadow Street. If the town planner could call up the plan. Do you have the one I sent you, Mike? I emailed it to you yesterday.
Give me 1 second. So we're going for 31-18. Full set?
Yep. No, the one that says aerial, there should be one that says aerial.
Okay.
That would be the first one, Mike. Thank you.
All kinds of stuff going on today.
Okay, this is an aerial taken from Google Maps showing the existing conditions of the property, which, as I mentioned, are located on 179 Meadow Street. This property also has frontage on Spur Lane, which is down towards the bottom of the property. Meadow Street is on the top of the property, and you can see that there's an existing house, residential house, in the upper corner here with a driveway that accesses out onto Meadow Street. The driveway continues down to a small parking area here. There's an existing barn in this location here. A large portion of the lot on the southern side is now currently lawn. And this is the area where the 2 interior lots are proposed with the intention of 2 residential houses. There is a wetland to the east of the property, which is over in the wooded area here. We have obtained a wetlands permit from the Conservation Commission for the activities that we are proposing. As I mentioned, we're proposing 2 interior lots under section 3.4.9 for proposed houses. Mike, if you could switch to the next one that says, I believe it says rendering. Yes. Thank you. Okay, this is a plan that shows the 2 interior lots along with the 2 proposed building areas. Again, to get the commission oriented, the This laser doesn't show up too good on that lighted map, but in the upper right-hand corner, that's Meadow Street there. Over to the left side is Spur Lane, which is a cul-de-sac. And the proposal for the two interior lots is to have one driveway, which you can see in dark gray, coming from the left off Spur Lane into a building area, which we're calling Lot 3. And then on the right side, we're extending the driveway slightly to access Lot 2, so that this would become a common driveway over on the right side to service Lot 2. It would share the existing driveway with the existing residential house on Lot 1. Currently, the site drains. The drainage is split just about where the proposed residential houses are shown. And from the houses back, the drainage currently flows to the wetland area, which you can see at the bottom of the screen with a green dash line and wetland symbols. In front of the houses, the lawn area currently drains to the north, to the west, and off the property into a catch basin, which is directed to the street. We are proposing as part of this of these interior lots to pick up any additional drainage from the driveways in a bioswale, which you can see along the north property line, and then direct the drainage into a rain garden, which you can see on Lot 3, on the northerly side of Lot 3. We're proposing a rain garden to prevent any impacts from the runoff. The roof drains from the house are proposed to drain towards the east and the back of the property, towards the wetland, which is where the water currently runs. Those are low-impact development techniques that we've used, taken right from the Newington Stormwater Manual. And the Wetlands Commission, Conservation Commission actually praised our design on this, saying that they don't typically see this in a residential setting, it's more in a commercial setting. But we wanted just to make sure that we had no impact on any of the surrounding neighbors with this project. These two houses are proposed to be connected to public sewer and public water. Those are available to the site, so we are proposing to connect to those. We have positive recommendation from staff, and there's an engineering memo that we received last week, and we will incorporate those comments into the plan. As the town planner mentioned, we feel they're fairly minor in nature, and we intend to comply with all of those, and can do that without a problem. This proposal for these interior lots meets your regulations, so if you have any questions or comments, try to answer them.
Okay. The rain garden that you're proposing, will it be easily maintainable for the residents, or how much maintenance will it require? And is it not, it's not going to be too overwhelming for that one lot, will it?
No, it won't. We've used these we've had good success with these in different towns, in different subdivisions, using them on individual lots. And we've included a maintenance plan on the plans. And also one of the town engineering comments, which was a good comment, is to state right on the plan who's responsible, so there's no questions about that.
Very good, very good. And you'll also have it on the records, that common driveway will be on the deed, I would
Exactly,
suspect.
yes.
Very good.
Yep.
We'll go to commissioners' questions, and then we'll go to the public. Any questions from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the barn going to stay, the existing barn?
The intent is to keep the barn.
Barn around
Yes.
that house?
Yes.
And then just a suggestion, because I do a lot of this, the rain gardens with the mulch in it, they tend to fail. So I would recommend not planting it with any sort of wetland plant other than a grass, and even something that can maintain it. We just did one in West Hartford, and they even used a beehive dome on top of the basin, and which is probably 10 inches above grade. It is completely covered solid in mulch, and it just creates a big puddle.
Okay.
It's a great idea, but functionally it just doesn't work. You get much more water back into the ground
without the mulch.
Without the mulch and the grass. And you know, it's easier for the homeowner to maintain.
Okay.
That's a good point. Anything else from the commissioners? Okay, we're going to open this up to public. Anybody wishing to come out and speak in favor of this, please come forward. State your name and address for the record. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition?
David Pels, 18 Spur Lane. This is very similar to the plan which this commission denied in May of 2008. It was petition number 7-08. And I have the minutes from that meeting. And also denied in 2007 as petition number 21-07. I have the minutes from that meeting. The reason is that the map that you were given is not accurate. It's not accurate because when this area was developed, developers appeared before this commission, and they got this commission to agree that in lieu of putting sidewalks on Spur Lane, there are no sidewalks on Spur Lane, there would be a public right-of-way that people could use. So there is a 15-foot public right-of-way on the east side of my property at 18 Spur Lane, and there is a public right-of-way on the north side of my property. The public right-of-way is 15 feet. The late Mrs. Karanian purchased that property from Flagler Associates. However, the case law is very clear that the purchase of a public right-of-way does not extinguish the public right-of-way. And in the almost 40 years that I have lived at 18 Spur Lane, school children routinely use that public right-of-way to get from Spur Lane and Bridle Path up to Meadow Street and the bus stops on Orchard Lane. So unless and until the proposed development can come up with a plan which does not impinge on the public right-of-way, I believe that the proposal should be denied as it was in 2007 and 2008. I have for the commission minutes from 2007, 2008, and April 24th, 1974.
Okay, we'll leave those with the town planner, and we've taken notes, and we'll look into that. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, the applicant has a chance to come back up and answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mark Friend for the record. We have done an A2 boundary survey on this and have done our land records research, and it's of the land surveyor's opinion that the state of the Karanians own that 15-foot right-of-way without any, we're not aware of any encumbrances over that whatsoever.
Okay, can you provide us any information on that for a later meeting, or?
We can provide the deeds for that, yes.
Okay, that would be perfect. Thank you very much. Sure. All right, and we'll keep this meeting open for next meeting, and then we'll probably do is once we get additional information, we'll have an opportunity at our next meeting to close it and possibly act on it.
If I may ask, given the hour, I know we're on the agenda later. Could we request that that item be tabled at the same time? We're on the agenda under new business for the subdivision aspect of this. They are tied very closely together. So
we'll table that, and we can go over those details at our next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that does it for our public hearings. We're at approval of minutes of August 8th, 2018. Commissioner Fox had some questions.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hold
I have,
on a minute, please. Hold on.
Okay.
2391 Berlin Turnpike, JGF.
Yep. I'm sorry, we have one more, 34-18. So if the secretary could read petition 34-18.
Petition 34-18, special permit, section 3.11.6, restaurant. At 2391 Berlin Turnpike, JGF Holdings Company, LLC, owner Matt Rusconi, applicant Dante Boffey, 108 Main Street, Collinsville, Connecticut, contact.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Tom Matos, architect representing Dante Boffey Design LLC. And what we're proposing is Artichoke Pizza Restaurant. And we need the special permit for parking spaces and for, let me see where I was at. And our site plan was approved for 11 spaces, and the requirement is 20 spaces per every 1,000 square feet of public area, and our restaurant has a public area of 550 square feet. And with that calculation, it works out to 11 spaces, which is exactly what we have. So that's all.
Nothing else?
Nothing else.
The building is about 1,700 square feet.
Yes.
So the rest of that area is restrooms and kitchen area?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Questions for commissioners? At the last time you were here, that was going to be a Botox rental. That was what was proposed. And another small low-volume generator was proposed on the other addition with some storage area. How are you going to address the parking problem? And I want to make sure that you have enough for this new tenant. If somebody from your team could come forward, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. For the record, my name is John Fumato from 17 Farmington Ave. That's my business. 798 Southington Road in Berlin. The Botox is going in the back building, and we're still taking approximately 375 square feet of storage space. They have 2 treatment rooms. It's basically 1 doctor and sometimes a receptionist, so they'll probably take 2 to 3 parking spots. I know the new addition's about 22 extra spots, I believe, close to that with the new addition. And the Artichoke Pizza, the restaurant area is pretty small, and the Botox closes at 5, and they're closed Saturdays and Sundays. And as far as the salon goes, we changed our staff to 4-day work weeks, so we're not as congested in the salon area either.
What days are you open now?
On the salon?
Yep.
We're closed Sunday, Monday.
Okay.
And then Saturday we close at 3, Friday we close at 5:30, and then Tuesday, Wednesday we're closed at 7.
Okay, so there might be some overlap, a little overlapping, but the idea is some of those businesses may be out of there, so it'll be open for the parking. How many employees will the restaurant have?
I believe 2 or 3. Matt, would know that?
Probably at max capacity.
You're going to have to come forward and state your name and address for the record if you could.
Also, yeah, just to state, the coffee shop closes early now, so they're out by 5:36.
Okay.
They used to stay open later, and he's closing a lot earlier because he's concentrating more in the back on cakes and stuff.
Okay.
And not as much on the front.
I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable with the parking, because if it doesn't work, it's only going to hurt the tenant and then thus hurt you. So
Yeah.
I just want to.
Yeah, I know it would hurt me a lot if it did, because, yeah, it would hurt me a lot if I felt the parking would give me a problem. But I believe we're going to be pretty good, because we're right now under construction to build, and I think we lost, maybe 7, 8 spots to do the construction, and until the parking lot is finished. And we're handling it now. So I think because at the beginning when we opened, it was congested. Everybody wanted to see who we were. They had a lot of grand openings, but we got that pretty under control because most of our employees went on a 4-day work weeks, shifted our schedules around to, accommodate the clients, because they'll be mad if we don't have enough parking as it is. And it seems to be working out pretty good. So, and that, like I said, the med spas signed a lease. They're definitely coming.
Yep.
And
They're very low volume. I understand that. Very low.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I understand. And if you could state for the record your name and address and the question on how many employees are at the restaurant.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Matt Rasconi, 80 River Knolls, Avon, Connecticut. The owner, franchisee of Artichoke Pizza. 2 to 3 employees, probably at max 5. If it gets fairly busy, but also, we'll probably stay open later, which we feel may be, when some of the business comes. So you'll probably have a clear parking lot then. So we feel that the flow of the business and the size of it and the number of employees fits in very well with the flow of the other businesses.
Okay. Hours of operation?
Hours of operation, we're probably going to do 11 a.m. Sunday through Wednesday till probably 10 p.m. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, perhaps midnight.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions, additional questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Clough.
The one question I had is, and I don't know if you can answer it, Mike, is how this change or affects, I remember that parking lot went through a lot of redesign to get it approved for the existing building that was going to stay, but since through construction difficulties, it got tore down, which is fine, but how does it now meet with all these tenants now as one? Because I think that's what the last stipulation was. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Both properties are supposed to be merged together, and I believe they're working to get that done. And that was one of the requirements, I believe.
I've had that conversation with the owner, because the parking lot that's to be built will be split by the property line. Before we're going to sign off on it, they will have to merge the parcels to the satisfaction of the assessor, so that he can't sell one parcel and then the other building is left without access. So we won't let them occupy the building.
Well, that has nothing to do with occupancy, but how does, when it does get proper, is there enough spots for this style business to come in, and not just this style business, but another restaurant that may come in? I know they stay under the same parking, well, maybe not in that area, but what I'm getting to is, all I've heard tonight is we think we're going to have enough parking. That's what I've heard, because while we're a 4-day work week, so I'm hearing employee issues with parking, just like the property behind it, which is not theirs, the Mexican restaurant, where they were all parking on his property because they didn't have enough parking. So after all this gets merged, will it meet the parking requirements stated by zoning laws?
If I could, and then I'll let you answer it too. But I believe that it was tight and it meets the regulations. But I was worried that if the business coming they were very successful, like they plan on being, I wanted to make sure that they had enough parking there so that they wouldn't be hindered, and then it would become a problem for the owner of the property.
I think that's what I'm trying to get
at
is.
So the applicant explained that there's going to be some other businesses that will be closing, and this will be operating towards the evening. So I feel a lot more comfortable with it. Whether or not we would approve it for a different type of restaurant or something, it would be hard to say, because we're approving this based on these details. And I'll turn it over to the planner to see if he has anything else to add?
When I met with the owner and they were interested in potentially using the space for the restaurant, we went through the parking that was approved for the property to determine and back ourselves into what could the site accept. So we determined that they had to be less than 550 square feet of public area. So a new restaurant or any restaurant could not have more than that because the site doesn't have any parking. On top of it, the second reason why we're requiring them to merge the parcels is because they're in the neighborhood of 10 spaces above what they need for the sculptures building. So with the parcels being combined, there'll be excess even with the addition, so that if there's any overflow, which by our code they don't need to, but it'll be there. So if they are successful, they do have an additional employee or there is an overlap, you have in the neighborhood of 10, maybe 12 spaces that are empty, that are not spoken for, that are on site, that they can all use.
But didn't we discuss this at length? And I remember the commissioner to my left, when we decided, why don't we move the parking and the entrance and the egresses of the original plan, this was a big issue, and it was supposed to be just part of the salon or an additional. So now it seems like things are changing. What I'm seeing is that we approved it for something, and now we're reapproving?
Well, you approved a building.
A building, okay.
Correct.
I just want to make sure I don't want it to come back and haunt us.
No, we approved the building space.
The space.
And it turned out that there was major structural problems
and-
with the existing building. Staff and the chairman gave him permission to take that building down because it had to come down. But the condition was that they could not increase it to the footprint.
Exceed the parking.
Okay, so that, he had to stay within that footprint. So as long as he stayed within that footprint, he hasn't exceeded any additional parking requirements.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, anybody see any problems with closing this and moving it to old business?
No, that's no problem. I moved it,
All
make
right.
that motion.
All right.
Second.
To move this to, close this and move it to old business.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next thing on our agenda is approval of minutes. Minutes of August 8th, 2018.
Questions on the minutes?
Commissioner Fox?
Yeah, I have text of Sandy Austin Goldstein's testimony from last meeting, and she's,
Go ahead. Just sit down and give us the page number that you're talking about and
bottom of page 18 and top of page 19.
okay, and what would you like to change on that?
A lot of it,
Well,
go through it here.
I can't believe that there's massive changes. Word here, there, what kind of changes are you talking about?
Hold on, let me find my minutes again. I can always get Sandy from NCTV. Because she just gave it to me and I didn't get a chance to read it, so I don't really know how much, how much is gonna have to change.
Maybe she needs to come in and address the commission on it. We can always change it at a later date.
Yeah.
Do you want to hold off on approving this minutes, guys, or do you want to approve it and then we could always change it later?
Yeah.
What's the,
I move we delay approving minutes until this testimony is corrected.
okay, all right.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll delay the minutes. Next thing we have is new business, and we have petition 26-18. If the secretary could read that, please.
Petition 26-18, site plan approval at 550 Cedar Street, Cedar Point, in accordance with Connecticut General Statute, Section 8-30G, Dakota Partners, Inc., applicant Stop and Shop Supermarket Company, LLC, owner Timothy S. Hollister, 1 Constitution Plaza, Hartford, Connecticut, contact.
Okay, very good. And if the applicant can come forward, and this here under site plan will go directly, do commissioners have any questions on the site plan? We talked about dumpsters last time, whether or not one was enough or not.
I just would like to have a more in-depth description of what has changed on this. I visually can see it, but, you know, I think if you could just give a quick overview of really what, did you meet the radii changes, the curbage?
Okay, well,
you know.
maybe this staff can give us one more brief report for us, if you could.
Sure. For the record, Will Walter, professional engineer with Alfred Burnett and Company. There's very little changes that have taken place. We have responded to staff comments. I have received the town engineer's comments, which mainly have to do with drainage. I've reviewed them. I haven't started to make changes. I don't see any issues. It's mainly things like make sure there's no conflict with this storm pipe and that sewer pipe. Maybe increase this pipe from 12 to 15 inches. Very, very little that you would see on the surface. Make sure water's not going to run from Cedar down the, you know, which we, of course, would. Mainly things like that. This is just a concept. We haven't engineered this, although I don't think it'll be super difficult. The center and the west, the north, in the middle part of the site is staying the same. The entrance scenario is the same. It's just flip-flopping those buildings and rearranging the layout. Of course, we'll have to redo the, you know, whatever utility lines are running through there and drainage, things like that. But in terms of the fire marshal, we increased the radii. We put a fence around the property, which was asked. There's really, other than that, there's really not much.
Have you confirmed with the MDC on water pressure and sewer capacity?
They're reviewing that right now.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Commissioner Woods.
I started my question a little while. Oh, yeah, now I got to stop again. Luck of the draw. Okay. All right. On pedestrian safety, so egress and out of that complex for somebody walking east and west. Is right now there are no sidewalks on the on Cedar Street. And from what I understand, your plan doesn't address that right now. Would you be willing to entertain that? That's my first question, because I am concerned. Because I think we will generate a fair amount of pedestrian usage, and we don't want to put them on that street. Second question?
No, I mean, yeah, we would be willing to entertain, for certain, putting sidewalks along our frontage. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, it doesn't really solve the problem, but and this actually is not you any longer. This goes to the building and all. Respect to the architect. I don't like the look of the building. It appears to me that it's an old style concept, something that, to be honest with you, they seem to be tearing down throughout the state, and building up newer townhouse looking complexes. This is, again, I've worked on 8 or 9 complexes that this has been torn down and new is in their place. I get what he was trying to reference with the Kellogg-Eddy house. I just think the buildings are too big to pull that look off. It just looks tenement housing to me. And I think if there's something you could do to soften the look of that building, it would make it much more appealing to your tenants also. And then the other item with the fence, if it is going to be a chain link fence, I would suggest that it would be either a black,
vinyl coated.
Fence. So,
yep.
Yeah, so
yep.
that just gets, you can't see it.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're
That's
standing next to it, you can see it, but if you're driving on the road, it just disappears.
That's what we were proposing. The other thing is, the Wetlands Commission had a concern that people may be throwing garbage down on the slope. So we had suggested that on the western side, we could put privacy slats so people can't push garbage through it, which we're willing to do that as well.
Problem is with the privacy slats, then the fence doesn't really disappear.
Well, if it's, they have the green vinyl fencing, and then they have the inserts, so it looks like a hedge, so it could blend in. I don't know whether or not if it's close to the top of the line, isn't some of the woods coming out there? Are you clear cutting all the way to the slope?
The previous application, we were placing that building at the top of the slope, and certain parts of the building were going, well, right on top of the slope. Certain parts were pulled back a little bit. This proposal, obviously, we're pulling everything off the top of that slope about, depending where you are, 8 to 10 to 15 feet off the, back on the top of that slope.
Now, did the wetlands 100-foot buffer come into that existing building that you moved?
Yes.
By how many feet did it?
Oh, probably 10 to 15 feet.
Okay.
Now the
So instead of
building's out, a little part of the clubhouse is still in that 100-foot buffer, but the purpose of relocating that building was not to pull the building per se out of the 100-foot buffer, because we still have to do work within the buffer. We still have to get a wetlands permit. It was just to pull it off the top of that slope. That was the specific concern of the Wetlands Commission.
Okay.
And that was the purpose of those privacy slats. Make sure, people could throw garbage over if they want to,
Yeah,
but we're trying to give them what they want, so.
Yep, okay. Any other?
And then the last, I'll make the same suggestion to you, and I haven't seen the details. Actually, I don't even know if you have details yet for your rain gardens, but.
We do. No mulch.
Mulch does not work.
I learned that the hard way as well.
It definitely doesn't work.
Yeah, we're going to have a wetland seed mix, if you will, that needs to be cut back twice a year. Very easy to maintain.
Okay. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner?
Yes, I'm going to echo Commissioner Woods' concern about the sidewalks. You are going to have pedestrian traffic. Once you get beyond your property, where do they go? That's my concern, okay? And obviously, you would be maintained, or the whoever owns that complex will maintain the sidewalks for snow and ice control.
Okay.
Okay. No, I'm just saying.
I don't know if that's the regulation. Absolutely will. Sure.
If it's on their property, what if it's sidewalk that's not on their properties?
That's something that have to be addressed, because my understanding, the DOT does not plow sidewalks.
Oh,
So,
well, then then why should they put them in?
They do.
well, for safety issues. If you're talking, people are going to be walking, where are you going to put them? Once you get beyond their property, how do they get down to the busway?
But they have something that states that they don't maintain them during the winter?
I don't believe they maintain any of the sidewalk.
they
Town, huh?
They do.
Use your microphone, please.
Willard Avenue.
Oh, the whole thing?
From the bridge all the way down past the bus station.
Right, that was recent. What about
They
up to the
always-
bridge?
They always did. They
Okay.
did.
Okay,
All
we
right.
need to find that out. That's my
All right, we'll
concern.
have staff look into that ask the state on that. As
Now-
far as I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now, as far as the buildings, would our equipment or our apparatus be able to get around the back if they needed to?
No.
No.
The fire marshal didn't require that. He reviewed these plans, and he had 2 minor comments to address all his safety concerns.
That's why it's at 13R.
And we've addressed both those comments.
And what about, I still have issues with the contamination. I would like to make sure this is all cleared up before we go with anything on this.
Yeah, he's going to bring us a plan, environmental plan for cleanup at our next meeting, I believe, and next week, okay?
No,
And, we'll have staff send it out to all the commissioners when the staff receives it. They're not going to be able to proceed with any type of housing on this property unless they get it to the satisfaction of DEEP. And if we wanted to make that a condition, I'm sure they wouldn't mind that to be a condition.
We'll be proposing that.
Very good. One of the questions on the sidewalks that came up, whether we have sidewalks down in front of your property, I can understand. We got some sidewalks to get down to the busway. The bridges have sidewalks, but in between the bridges don't have sidewalks. Up to the point where National Welding property is. There's another developer on that corner, which eventually is going to have to put sidewalks in. We may need you to possibly put the sidewalks in going down towards the busway, or have to work out between this developer and the other developer on the other end taking a shared cost on it or something. Especially since, if I'm not mistaken, you're getting credit for being close to a busway. You're getting 6 extra points for being close to a busway for your financing. So I think it's imperative that you have a safe means to get the pedestrians to the busway. So if we could just look into that a little bit more for the future plans. And the architectural, it might be more the color than with all due respect to the architect, these aren't the best drawings, I think. And I think if we can maybe add some different roof lines or other things to it to make it a little nicer, I would agree with my other commissioners that something needs to be done to change that. Commissioner Fox, do you have something?
Yeah, I agree. I've always agreed. Yeah, but are we going to get this to see any elevations of the actual site?
Let me refer to the architect.
Oh, okay.
Can't answer that question. Let's deal with the site.
Thank you.
We actually had submitted elevations during the last submission, so there are some in the package from the previous part I mentioned. So they're in the submission from last time.
Okay.
So we're not going to get to see any new elevations?
No, the elevations haven't substantially changed. We showed detail of the construction details in the finer grain this time to add additional detail.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I have to say, I also agree with Commissioner Sobieski that I really don't think we should be making any decisions on this until we know that this site's going to be completely remediated, and so that
Well, we'll have that answer real soon.
Residents, yeah.
We'll have that answer real soon.
Thank you, Don.
Yep. Any other questions? Commissioner Woods?
Is there any way to get an egress off would be I guess the northeast side of the property to Alumni Road? Is there any access to Alumni Road for pedestrians? You know, is there an easement that you could get, or I know you're close, I just don't know how close.
It's my understanding that there's just private property between us and Alumni. In fact, looks like there's a couple of properties that we'd have to go through.
Actually, I think it's
we have to go through 2 properties to get there.
Oh, I didn't realize the product design goes all the way down too. So it's Galicio's and so it's set in further than I thought. Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Hey, Mike, could you go back to that aerial just for a second? With the aerial, maybe Mr. Chairman, could you just point out for you where the sidewalks are and what
in front of your property.
Right.
And there's a bridge here which has a sidewalk.
Right.
Then there's an open area, and then there's a bridge that has sidewalk, and then there's another open area.
Okay. So
going down towards
That's the fast track.
the National Welding property.
you said between the bridges, that's what you were, okay.
Yes.
I didn't understand.
No,
Okay, I got it.
anything else from the commissioners? Does the applicant have anything else you'd like to add now on the site plan issues?
We've got a long to-do list.
Okay, very good. Okay, I want to thank you very much, and we'll have this on our agenda for our next meeting too. Thank you very much for staying a little longer and dealing with these site plan issues. I greatly appreciate it. Okay, next thing on our agenda, if the secretary could read petition 29-18.
Petition 29-18, section 8-24, referral from Newington Town Council, proposal, modular building at 25 Mill Street Extension, Newington Town Council, applicant.
Is the applicant here?
Town engineer is here.
Hello,
Hey, Dominic.
how are you?
Good.
If you could fill us in briefly, I'd appreciate it.
Be happy to. This is an enabling project for the new town hall construction. the first step for the new town hall construction is to raise the Learning Academy. And so this modular building is going to be used for the Learning Academy. It's a temporary building that would be on site for approximately 2 years, the duration of the construction. Once the new town hall is constructed and operational, then the Learning Academy would be moved into the new town hall, and the modular buildings would be removed from the site. What you're looking at here, this is it's a utility plan that was prepared and submitted to the MDC for approval of the water service and the sewer service to connect into the MDC facilities. And the MDC has approved the connections and this plan is what they've approved.
Very good. Do you know if there's, when the building is placed on the parking lot, if there's a skirt underneath it, or is that exposed? It's normally they put it up on blocks.
No, right. I can answer that, and the answer is yes. That was part of that. That's some of the notes that are off the sketch that you're looking at, but that is one of the notes that they need to have a skirt. Again, that's for protecting for frost protection for the utilities.
Okay. Okay. So there will be a skirt around the outside edge there. Okay. I know when this was brought up at council, there was some people that were worried and residents that it was going to turn into a long-term thing, and the council, I think staff made it clear that it was only temporary until the Transition Academy moved in to the new building.
Yes, this is intended to be temporary in nature. Approximately 2 years is what we're thinking.
And then I know that some residents were concerned about the buffer there, and I don't know if any other commissioners went out there. I went out there. Where it is proposed, I looked at the buffer between that property and the adjacent residential neighborhood, and there was a well-established buffer there, so I don't see any problems there by adding anything new there for this temporary thing. And I just wanted to bring that up on the record. I think that covers everything, unless there's any questions for the town engineer from the commissioners. Commissioner Sobieski.
Yeah, Gary, will this impact the senior center parking over there when they have like bus trips and stuff? I'm just curious, because I've been over there several times when that lot's been pretty full when they go out for bus trips and whatnot. I'm just asking.
The times I've been over there, there's been nobody there. So obviously we've been there at different times.
Right.
On the times I've been there, it's virtually vacant. So that's why this area was selected. Mm-hmm. I can't speak for, when they have bus trips or special events.
I'm just asking if it had been looked at, that's all.
We consider it appeared to be a vacant area. I can't say it gets very little use in general.
Right, most of the time. Most of the time. I'm just saying, like the last couple of times I was there, they had bus trips and they had the thing pretty much loaded, that's all.
I guess people they have to park in a different spot temporarily then for a short period of time.
I think the building itself is only taking a few parking spaces,
Correct.
if anything. So we're really not going to be losing many parking spaces.
Yeah, it's taking about a dozen spots at the end there. That's really all we're losing.
Okay. Very good.
Are those trips, are they during the school week when the Learning Academy is in session, or are they more or less on the weekends when the Learning Academy
during the week they'll take a bus trip maybe to the vineyards or something like that. You'd have to check with Diane Stone to see when they're scheduled. I mean, that's all I was bringing up.
I think the scheduling, the sequencing can be worked out.
Yeah.
I just want to mention one more thing, Dominic. When you talked about fencing and screening, originally we had tried to route the utilities through the existing openings and let the fence and the shrubs at the end of the road or not affect that part of the screening, and route it through the existing openings. The MDC requested that we change the routing, and by changing the routing, that the fence and some of the shrubs at the end of the road would be removed, but they would also be replaced as part of the construction project.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a couple questions. Is it office, construction style office, modular, like a construction site?
No, they're a scale up, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a step up. Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding it's gonna be two buildings that they're gonna truck to the site and they're gonna mesh them together. That there's gonna be
Actually have
like,
some sort of facade around it so it'll be somewhat attractive looking. I mean,
I can't speak to the architectural nature of the building. I'm pinch hitting right now. So, but
yes, if you can answer that, Commissioner.
I'll speak to that. I sit on the building committee, and this was a bona figuring out where to put the transition academy. But it's a standard, from what Dave Langdon has explained to us, it's a standard dual-sided classroom, but it has a little more meat and potatoes in it to meet the requirements for all the things that are in it. There's a different finish on the inside than your standard, school extra classroom they may put up at a school in town. This is more of a permanent, because it is there for 2 years, but it is temporary. But it has a little more. The look of it's going to look like a temporary classroom, but the inside is where the Board of Ed wanted a little more better finish. Trim level package a little better, just because it's going to be there longer than a 3 or 4 month duration. So to answer your question.
yeah, but my concern really was with the outside, not the inside.
Yeah.
But again, the concern for the people who needed it was the inside and not the outside. So, I mean.
Okay. Gary, the utilities that are being put in place, will they remain afterwards? The piping will just remain there in case it's needed in the future. Is that correct?
that is correct. So they'll be capped underground.
Okay.
For future use if the town needs to extend something. That we have that infrastructure already in place. There's no sense to remove that infrastructure once it's installed.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, I think we're all set. I appreciate your report on us.
Can I ask?
We're going to act on this right now for you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm going to entertain on this 8-24. I'd like to move to approve petition 29-18, section 8-24, referral from Newington Town Council, proposal modular building at 25 Mill Street Extension, Newington Town Council applicant, with findings: number one, that the existing buffer along the property line is sufficient for protecting the abutting property owners, with condition that, one, the fence and trees are replaced after construction of the utilities, and condition two, that the approval is temporary and the town shall remove the modular building and restore the area back to its original condition within 90 days after the transition academy moves into its permanent space in the new town hall.
Second.
I have a second. Discussion. I want to make sure, if I could invite Gary back up here for a minute. I want to make sure that I had originally thought of 60 days, but I thought 90 days would be more appropriate. Do you feel that 90 days is enough time for the removal of this?
I think 90 days is fine, Commissioner, or Chairman. It just, whenever, I'm not sure exactly the exact date when, when the town hall, new town hall facility is going to be available to move in.
Correct. That's why I didn't want to set a date on it, so it'll be 90 days when the transition academy moves into their new space.
Perfect.
So that should cover us.
Yes.
On that.
Yeah, I think 90 days is adequate.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion on the floor. It's seconded. Any other further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is petition 30-18, but that's been tabled until our next meeting. Under old business, petition 28-18, if the secretary could read that.
Petition 28-18, zoning text amendment, section 6.16, medical marijuana. Medical marijuana, Seva Sedan LLC, applicant John M. Kelly, 66 Cedar Street, Newington, Connecticut, contact.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioners, this is on the zoning text amendment that was presented to us. Commissioners have any comments on it?
I know it's in here because I read it. I saw it. Oh, maybe it's in here. It's in the packet. Mr. Chairman, I'll read the motion if you'd like.
I'm not really ready for a motion. I want to discuss it and make sure everything's okay. I mean, let's frankly, we were at 1,000 feet and now they want to reduce it down to 0. And it looks like they want to put 1,000-foot requirement that nobody else could be next to them. But it's okay to be within 100 feet of a residential neighborhood. So I want to get some comments from the commissioners on if they think that this regulation is okay. This also has a regulation where it's for BBT zone. Well, that's just a small fraction of the space on the Berlin Turnpike. What about the PD zone? Why can't it go in the PD zone? Why are we limiting it only to the BBT zone? So I want to hear what commissioners have, if they have any concerns, how they feel about it, how it's been written.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah.
What is, for the record, how liquor facilities like package stores, are there anything, for the record, between package store A, can the next package store B open within a certain distance of schools and/or other package store facilities? And I bring that up because at the last meeting that was brought up by, I think, someone from the public. Don't quote me, I'll go back into the minutes, but it was brought up about, not that they're the same use, believe me, they're not, but the same type style. It is,
Yeah.
they match distances.
Do we
meaning,
use those regulations that govern the alcohol? Do we use those same if we're going to reduce this? Do we use those regulations as a guide?
As a guide in these regulations, because it is, a more special permit. So speak of that if you can.
Our regulations which deal with alcoholic beverages, Newington has multiple classes of permits. So people that sell alcohol, people that serve alcohol, restaurants. We have different classes of permits which Newington sets. It's not something we take from the state. And we do have separation requirements based on the type of permit it is and the type of facility, whether it be a hospital or a school, and so that varies. There is also a modification provision in the regs as it stands with a number of findings so that the TPZ can modify those distances. For example, you could not have a new restaurant to serve liquor within the town center as it stands now because there is a church also in the town center. When you guys discuss the waiver provisions and the fact that they're not allowable, this is so specific in the findings you have to make. That's why they remained. But that's none of that comes from liquor control. It's all dealt with locally.
But under the liquor control that we control as a town, we do have specific provisions of how close they can be. Let's not speak of in the downtown zone because we know there's some fixing there. But in some other zones where you kind of off the top of your head know where there's liquor stores, do have the site distance between so that if a liquor store just use Fen? I don't wanna
Yeah,
use
Fen Road is a great example.
Okay.
You can have a Stop and Shop or someone retailing liquor, and then you can have a bar or tavern, which is specifically, that's their job. They serve alcohol to customers. And you can have a restaurant that serves liquor. They can all be next to each other because they're different classes of permits under our regulations. However, if you wanted to replace the restaurant with an additional bar and have two, then a separating distance would come into play based on our regs. And they would have to meet that standard unless it was modified by you.
So that stands for all classes. If you're gonna sell liquor,
The
let's say we're gonna
distances are different
say.
based on the class of permit.
Okay, but there are in our regs specifics to that. I mean, that's my question to the fellow commissioners is, it seems from reading the proposed edits and changes that it comes to me as this proposal is, well, we want to be the first dispensary and et cetera, or pharmacy style, and we don't want anyone within 1,000 feet of us to compete with us, which I think is kind of odd, but I'd love to hear from you guys. To me, we're trying to promote businesses, but this reg, if we change it, is kind of promoting it for the first one who got the worm, and the rest can just deal with it, and that doesn't seem pretty cordial to other developers, people who may have the funds to be a dispensary.
And
So,
Commissioner, do you have any input on whether or not you think it could be moved to the PD zone also? What's your input on that? The BT zone is just a small fraction up there. If we were going to open it up for that zone on the turnpike, what would be the harm of opening it up for a PD zone?
I think what it should be opened up is to any zone that has a commercial inclination within that zone. And I use Fen Road as a big example of this because it almost has every zone, not every zone, but it has a good mix of a little industrial, it has some business, and I use business lightly to include all of that can be there. And then it has a residential, and you have residential that's intertwined within all those. So, and I'm not speaking of Fen because there was talk in previous meetings, just to be clear, that was an area of choice by some applicants, not naming any, but I use that road because it is a good mix of what we have to deal with proximities to other zones that don't allow a certain thing that our regs allow. So if we're going to open it up in one zone, I don't see, we've tried over the past many years to clean up the regulations so that it's more feasible so everyone can kind of commingle. I would say open it up to the zones where business is allowed, and if it fits in that, then if you want to have it on the Berlin Turnpike and you want to have it on Cedar Street, why not?
Right.
Even though Cedar Street has residential, then you got the town center, and then you go down the other end toward Central, and you got industrial or manufacturing.
And then just one last question, Commissioner Claffey, your feelings on distance requirements between this type of facility and residential property?
My personal opinion, we set. I don't say it's. I say we as the commission. I think 2 years ago, I don't think I was sitting as an admin at the time when the original were set at 1,000 feet and all these. The original standard was built by the TPZ. I mean, I look back at what is allowed within 1,000 feet of a school or residential. We have to really look at our regs and say what isn't allowed within those footages. If we don't allow something now that's a business that operates and it meets or had to meet the distance requirement from a workshop, public building, or playground, park, or schooling, we have to take that into consideration. Again, it gets back to, well, we want to be 100 feet from a residential neighborhood. I mean, we tell a liquor store you can't be within 100 feet of a residential neighborhood. So now you're opening it up where you could put a liquor store at the corner of, rezone the corner of Main Street and what's that vacant gas station that's there? Main Street, is it Connecticut Ave or Hartford Ave? You could, 100 feet from a neighborhood, there's a house right there. And, you know, you could have a dispensary there. It doesn't really fit the look of the neighborhood. But, you know, so my overall opinion is 100 feet is way too less. Maybe 1,000 feet is a little too long or too wide. Maybe 800. You know, I think that might put them in an area where they can be more accessible to a lot more business zoned areas in town and get them away from more of the residential infill that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Camello had his hands up, and then we'll move on from there.
I think it should be 500 feet, and 500 feet from any resident, not single-family resident. So apartment building, et cetera, condos, townhouses, should be 500 feet.
And your take on allowing it in a PD zone besides the Berlin Turnpike zone?
If it could fit with those
Requirements, if it could fit within those requirements? Okay. I'll open it up to, you have anything else? Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, I have no problem with eliminating C, the 1,000-foot, so no medical marijuana dispensary facility or production facility shall be allowed within 1,000 feet of any other one. I think that probably should go, which is C in the new reg. I guess it was E, and now it is C. And I have no problem with including the PD zone in it. If it's going to be in the BT zone, it should be on all of the Berlin Turnpike. But I think the 100 feet is fine as far as distance goes, and we don't need the.
Okay, you should think 100 feet from a residential property is sufficient. We have a regulation that stops a drive-through restaurant has to be 300 feet from a residential neighborhood because of the speaker. I know this isn't the same, but I just, you know, so 100 feet, in your opinion, is okay to be as close to 100 feet to a residential property?
Again, I see this as a medical need. This is not a recreational facility that we're looking to license, or they're looking to license. So this would be no different than a doctor's office. And actually, we have doctor's offices in residential zones, right?
Yeah, you got to remember, we were at the extreme at one time, and the question is, do you go all the way to the other extreme, or do you find a happy medium, something that is within the, similar to the alcohol requirements or not?
Actually, getting back to the alcohol, I was going to try to bring up, but Mr. Claffey here went on for quite a while, and I lost my train of thought. But didn't we just amend that too, because it was so outdated?
We amended a fraction of it for like 40,000 for shopping centers.
Yeah, because, and again, it doesn't make sense if you get a shopping center today, which are mostly turning to restaurants and facilities that serve liquor, that you're limiting it to it, so now you're going to start losing businesses. So, again, back to your comment, Mr. Chairman, on the whole thing kind of doesn't make sense, because we were at both ends of this, we meaning this commission, even when it was first put in, we were at 1,000 for a manufacturing and 100. So it's again. So let's keep it restricted to the PD and the BT zone, the Berlin Turnpike for now, and maybe look at it as a whole commission later on where else we can add this throughout the town. I think there is a need for it. I really do. I'm very fortunate that I don't have the need for it, and I hope I never do. But I do believe there is a need for this sort of facility within our town to help people that need this particular service. So that's where I'm at with it. Again, I've got no problem with C. Leave it at the 100 feet, and we can add the PD to it.
And then remove the 1,000.
Remove the 1,000.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Fox?
I have to agree with Commissioner Woods about the distances and about allowing it in the PD zone as well as the BBT. When you can't compare medical marijuana to alcohol. It's an entirely different thing. You're setting up a very specific pharmacy. You know, you can't just walk into there. You have to have a reason to be in there, and I believe that they have secure locks on it, and so And as Steve said, the people that go there really need it for pain relief, for this, that, and the other thing. So I agree, 100 feet is plenty.
May I ask a question of our acting planner? Do we, and I haven't looked at it in depth, but do we have a tobacco stipulation? No, some towns do, though. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, tobacco is regulated only via the state.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to confirm.
Yes, Commissioner Sobieski.
Yes, I'm in favor of, with both Commissioner Wood, Commissioner Fox. Just so you remember, I was one required push for the 1,000 feet, and that was because we didn't want, as the town planner said, we could put one in the center of town. And that was when we were looking at this originally.
Okay. All right, now that we got all the comments and everything, is it all right if we have the temporary town planner pass on those requirements and changes to our town planner so he can present us a clean picture for our next meeting of these changes, to how to put it into the PD zone and the other things that we talked about? If there's no objection to that?
Can you review them just so I can make sure I have everything, because we went back and forth a couple of times?
Yeah. Commissioner
Is there a time frame on this?
No, I think we're still within our time frame and everything.
No, I meant for the applicant.
I don't know. I mean, you got to remember, the first time he came in, he said he could comply with our 1,000 foot. And they couldn't comply, and it's been going on and on and on. So I don't know about whether or not we're meeting his time requirements, but I want to make sure that if we're putting something into our regulations, that we have a clear picture of exactly what it's supposed to say. And I don't feel comfortable with the way it is now. And we want to basically add it for PD zones and hear the town planner's opinion on the PD zone and if there's any other zones that we should add it to. And then the other thing was keeping it at the 100 feet, but also removing the 1,000 foot number C. And I would like to get the town planner's input on those changes before we make it official. Commissioner Fox.
Mr. Chairman, I think the applicant does have a time restraint. He has to get his state approvals within a certain amount of time, and he needs our approval first. 2 weeks ago, we had decided to close the meeting, close the hearing, and put on old business for today. In the meantime, I don't know if anybody here knew it, but there was a letter to the town planner asking that it be put on old business for the last meeting.
And if you remember correctly, that was never told to us, okay? We didn't know about it.
You didn't know about it?
We did not know about that. I did not know about that. The town planner was sitting here and he forgot to tell us about it. So, yep, and 1 second. Anything else, Commissioner Fox?
No, that's it.
Commissioner Claffey.
What, acting planner Mike, do we have any other business operation that is limited hours that we, there's no place here that we limit the hours of operation outside of, and I'm just going to use this loosely, maybe Tilcon, but I'm talking like a standard business operation. We don't have limitations on their hours of operation.
You can discuss hours of operation for a special permit if you feel that it is warranted based on the application, but the regs don't unilaterally dictate hours of operation for offices or restaurants. So it comes.
I guess.
Yeah, there's
okay.
one in here.
Well, that's where I'm. If you turn the page to 108, they want to ask for no limitation. And what I'm getting at is any of our manufacturing facilities in town, our production facilities for, like I use the mattress company that came in, they open their standard hours because I drive by there every day. It's like 7 to 5 and then it's empty. But there's no stipulation that says that they couldn't operate that facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay. And we don't have anything in town like that.
A noise ordinance is the only thing that would come into play if there were hours of operation, but no, we don't regulate hours of operation just across the board.
We don't because we don't have anything on the record or in the law.
There's nothing in the regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from any other commissioners?
So what?
Commissioner Woods.
Yeah, so back to page 108, Mike. B and C. So B says we're limiting it to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and C underlined says there is no limitations.
Well, one's for production facilities. There's no limitation on hours on production facilities because they have to take care of the plants. The medical dispensary is being limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is what the applicant's attorney is proposing.
7 days a week.
Correct.
So this is, if I can, the changes that I believe that we're talking about is on page 106, it would go from BBT zone and PD zone for dispensary facilities only. And then eliminating C on page 107. Is that correct, Mike? That's
You want to include the PD zone as change 1. You want to remove the 100-foot requirement under C for number 2. Those were the 2 changes to the text, and then Vice Chairman Payne just wants that to be reviewed by the town planner. Those were the 3 requests that I'm hearing.
in C, it goes from 1,000 feet, right, to either 0 or 100. I'm fine with either.
I don't think we put anything on that.
Yeah.
We're at 500 feet from residence.
I guess that's why I brought my question on the hours of operation addition on page 108, because you are going from 1,000 feet to a residential zone to 100. You technically could be living in your residential home in our beautiful town of Newington and have a marijuana production facility running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where in other zones that have already mandated distance stipulations of 500 feet, 1,000 feet, they are producing, they're allowed to produce, but their requirement is 1,000 feet from a residential house.
Right.
So that's all, that was the only reason I brought the question of page 108 on the addition of, don't limit us on how we can operate, even though we're gonna be 100 feet from a neighborhood. I'm just thinking of the consequences that might bring up.
I'd feel more comfortable if we had more footage on there from a residential neighborhood. I thought that they had some play in the footage. You know, I don't know whether it was 400 feet, 300 and something feet. I thought we had some play, not just 100 feet.
I believe it needs to be under 300, under 400 feet. I think it's 350, 370, I believe it is. If I remember right, Mike, 370, 380 to that backyard.
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
You know,
But I don't want it to.
But it would, no, well, we could possibly extend the footage, but still be and still meet his, that zone area.
Yeah, but then you may be, and I don't, Planner Mike would have to answer this, is spot zoning. Now you're coming into a specific area in a specific zone.
No, we're saying that it would be open to all the other zones, but we're increasing the distance requirement from a residential of 100 feet to, let's say, 300 feet as an example. And if it still works for that property, we gain 200 feet of protection for other residential property.
And the production side, not the dispensary side, or both.
Well, that's something that we should discuss, I think. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, it's been a long night. We've got a lot of things on the agenda. We've had a nice conversation on this. I mean, this took you guys a long time to come up with this regulation. And I certainly want to see this work for the applicant, but I want to make sure that the residents are protected. And so I think it would be good to have the town planner just review these things from our minutes and stuff and help us get this with a clear picture of something that works not only for the applicant, but works for the rest of the town.
I just want to add, I do think, and I think that Craig discussed this with you at a previous meeting, but this to give you an idea when we're discussing the application here, obviously the site is here. This is the closest residential zone. So
the old movie theater?
Correct.
Okay.
It's zoned residential.
You have enough tape?
So the facility obviously has access to Prospect. So the only real separation is Prospect Street. I believe, and I know we can't ask him now, but I believe the number was arrived after looking at the fact that there's really only the distance of the right-of-way between the closest residential zone.
No, it's Cedarwood. There's a rear lot on Cedarwood. There's a lot that runs north and south.
Right here?
Nope, that one, right there. That's it,
Yeah?
right there. That's the problem. Or that's the issue.
Not this one, because when I,
No, that's a right of way.
it's
That's the
not,
right.
it's, that he owns that parcel.
Right.
You're
He
right.
owns to here.
That's the back entrance is the only
No,
action.
no one even, I don't think we've even discussed that yet.
That's still his property though.
Yeah.
But
Property,
Yeah.
that is a rear, that is, it's a
Yeah,
dog leg,
yeah.
flag lot, whatever.
And then, even though it's Weathersfield, it's still.
So his separating distance is the right-of-way width of Prospect Street. Because this is where his property line ends, and this is where the closest residential zone begins. And that is what prompted a discussion with the applicant when I met with him, and that's what started a modification, because it didn't work.
So then
Yeah, I
100
haven't
foot
seen
wouldn't
this
even
before.
work then, technically speaking, if you're saying, because you measure from halfway through the road and then to the other side of the property. The road's 30 feet on the side.
Yeah, I mean, so we're talking about, no medical marijuana production facility shall be allowed on a site that is less than 100 feet from any property that is zoned for a single family. So, I mean, even if we,
Well, that's what prompted, and I recall this very clearly, Planner Minor at the time getting what do you classify your lot line and where you take that distance from. And then he changed, that's where some of those changes evolved from.
right, and I
Because
don't
everyone
wanna,
was coming from the front looking at Cedar Lane.
Yeah, we were definitely measuring Cedarwood.
well,
Lane.
and I don't wanna overstep what's going
No, I
on there,
understand.
but in my review of this and sitting down with the attorney, I think that this Monroe Way as shown is the closest parcel zone residential. So if it was determined that 100 feet works, then I would move forward with that. But I just want to make it clear that I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with how we're looking at that.
We don't know that.
Be 100 feet. I mean, it-
Doesn't work there.
I wouldn't be comfortable measuring with this GIS. We'd have to look at the surveys, which we don't have obviously here.
All right, if you could pass on to the town planner all the concerns,
Sure.
and if there's no objections, if we could dive
I was
into
gonna
this.
try to push it through, but not with this, I won't, so.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that. Commissioner Claffey.
I kind of concur with my right hand over here.
Okay.
Mr. Woods.
All right, and we'll try to get this all straightened out for our next meeting. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is, okay, let's see. We have, if you could read the next petition 2018,
I'm gonna read this petition.
which we're going to basically table until our next meeting.
Petition 2018. Petition 2018, special permit, section 6.16.3, medical marijuana dispensary at 2272 Berlin Turnpike. Siva Sedan LLC, owner applicant John M. Kelly, 66 Cedar Street, Suite 208, Newington, Connecticut. Contact.
Okay, and that's going to be tabled until our next meeting, so we can get some additional information. If the secretary could read petition 32-18.
32-18, accessory outside use, section 3.23.1.b at 225 Richard Street, H.O. Penn Machinery Company, Inc., applicant N.W. Branch LLC, owner Anthony Bannister, 225 Richard Street, Richard Street, Newington, Connecticut. Contact.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Woods?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself again from this petition because of a business conflict.
Very good, thank you. All right, I'll entertain, they were going to move the fence back. I don't know how many feet they were going to move it back. I'll say 10 feet as a,
There's a revised plan in your.
okay. So I guessed right, we have 10 feet.
Good.
We have the revised town plan. If anybody doesn't have any questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Um,
We're good? We're good?
Make a motion.
You're making a motion?
Yes.
We have a motion in the, a draft motion, if you want to read the draft motion.
Petition 32-18, accessory outside use, section 3.23.1B at 225 Richard Street, H.O. Penn Machinery Company, Inc. Applicant N&W Branch LLC, owner Anthony Bannister, 225 Richard Street, Newington, Connecticut. Contact. I move to approve petition 32-18, accessory outside use, section 3.23.1B at 225 Richard Street, H.O. Penn Machinery Company, Inc. Applicant N&W Branch LLC, owner Anthony Bannister, 225 Richard Street, Newington, Connecticut. Contact. Conditions, none.
No, we have one. The plan that was submitted,
There's a revised draft motion which he's reading in the folders because the revised plan was submitted to address all of your comments.
okay,
So
okay. So the revised plan shows it 10 feet away, so there's no conditions needed. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations and good luck with the fenced area. Hopefully it brings a lot of sales in. Okay, Commissioner Woods is coming back. Okay, we have petitions for public hearing scheduling. We don't have anything on the schedule, but we do have a full agenda for next meeting. Executive session was eliminated. Nothing's ready on that. There is no town planner's report. Mike, do you have anything else you have to add?
I do not. Nope, there's nothing.
No communications? Okay, we're going to go to public participation. Anybody wishing to speak from the public? Remarks by commissioners? Any other remarks from the commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Clapper.
Want to wish Mike good luck in his future endeavors. Thanks for helping us out.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, I echo that. Mike, thank you very much, and I wish you the best of luck with your new job. And thank you very much for all the hard work that you've done for us.
No cake.
Okay. All right.
Can't buy us waters.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.